Wopila Gathering. Leon Petualas Teuiak Hena Wopila. Yatiata Nagana and Kapik in Namushivich Halapulen. Walk here on Hetcha. They were Tokata Lakota walk every taco pick no kind of Ushivich Hala or was Agwich Hayo. Tokata Hakosa Ota money. Upi Unkahina extra child and not Oyate picked on kind of walk a chakat. You have oyate unagana yang kapik na ko a chakat. Na hina se ko na ko wopila predo. What metaki oyas.
Wow. How Lekshi Lila Wopila Tanka.
What?
Appreciate that. I want to welcome everybody who's tuned in to our third annual Wopila Gathering. This idea came about right before COVID, and our plan was to do it in person, but we've had to do it online for the past 3 years, and each time we have a fundraising goal, and I want to thank everybody who's RSVP'd. We were trying to hit 1,000 RSVPs, people who plan to attend, and we may have hit that, we may have not, but we always set a goal, a fundraising goal, and we've done that this year with 25,000, and every single dollar of that amount will be matched by other donors who are in our support network. And our crew tells me right now that we're at about 15,000 in terms of reaching that goal. So people, if you would like to, you can go to lakotalaw.org/Wopila. It's really powerful for me. It's really strange in a good way to see Lekshi Ed Star. That is the elder that you just were able to spend some time with. We asked him if he could open the evening up in his way, in his invocation, and he chose to do that through a song. Ed Star, or Ed Star Comes Out, is another name that he goes by. Lekshi is a term of respect. I call him that because he's older than I am, and when I began my spiritual walk in a very conscious way, Ed was there to help guide and to help teach, just by virtue of the circle that I was able to enter at that time. So it's just it's really an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a distinct opportunity that we get to work with Ed Star, who is a knowledge keeper of our nation, of our people. Wok Sape Yuhamani. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, and Ed is a keeper of knowledge and a keeper of wisdom and a seeker of knowledge and a seeker of wisdom. There are many times just in our conversations that I've had the opportunity to learn from Ed. So I want to thank Ed for showing up tonight. And again, it's a privilege. We have 3 conversations planned for tonight, centering on resistance, representation, and resurgence. And before each of those conversations, we're going to have amazing guest appearances. I want to say thank you to all of our influencers, our leaders, our personalities, entrepreneurs, professionals, artists, just people who we find to be very powerful, very profound. They each of them have their own networks, have their own line of talent, and are just pursuing their meaning and their purpose and their passion. I mean, that includes a young woman that I just met over the internet, Keely Eagleshield. That includes people that I've heard about, that I've seen, no doubt. James Jones, Notorious Cree, Landback Batty. It includes Lily Joy Winder. It includes Tanya Jo Hall, Scotty Clifford, and of course Raul Trujillo and Gene Braverock. These are Native brothers, Indigenous brothers who've been in the storytelling, the Indigenous Representation Agency, and acting, being artists. We have a powerful lineup, and I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. Lila Taya Yahipelo. Again, my name is Chase Iron Eyes, and this is our third annual Wopila Gathering, and we're going to have some talks about what we've been up to. What we like to do in our Wopila gatherings is it's kind of like if we were a big bad evil corporation. It would be like a shareholders report. Those who are here with us tonight are part of a constituency, part of a consciousness elevating block of people, a circle of people who are connected, sometimes in person, a lot of times through media, and who've supported our journey over the last, for me, the last 11 years. Lakota Law has been a project of the Romero Institute since roughly 2006, 2005, somewhere in there. The founders of the Romero Institute, which are Danny Sheehan and Sarah Nelson, and then Danny Paul Nelson, helped us harness the power of the Indigenous voice and Indigenous activism, and helped build this platform to what we have today, which is a very real and powerful vehicle, something that whereby we can impact social and spiritual and political, by extension political and economic and institutional change, wherever we see a challenge to our inherent guiding principles as they relate to environmental justice, or freedom, justice, and equality in general. Lakota Law has grown to be such a powerful tool, and we could not have done any of this unless you joined us and you supported us. Whether you supported us financially, you supported us spiritually, you supported us in our consciousness building and helping us to converge our paths. And that's for me, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to help guide our organization so that we can continue to fight for what's righteous and what's just. And again, I want to thank Ed Starr, Lexi Ed, for doing that for us, and for opening up our evening. But I just wanted to make an introductory statement about why we do what we do here at Lakota Law on our third annual Wopila Gathering, and it's Giving Tuesday. We're trying to hit that goal of 25,000. We're usually pretty successful in hitting that, and that's because people like you help us. That's because you share our material. That's because you sign up for our email list, and you continue to invest in Indigenous power building in our movement. Our movement is very, very broad, but I wanted to give that introductory statement and turn it over to Anna.
Hamataki Keely Eagleshield Damachi. Hello everybody, my name is Keely Eagleshield. You might know me from my beadworking business called Beads by Beans, and if not, I'm a Wopila Lakota beadworker from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. My childhood nickname was Beans, so that's actually where the name Beads by Beans comes from. In fact, a lot of my inspiration comes from my upbringing and my commitment to honoring my ancestors and culture. To me, honoring my ancestors and culture means utilizing the platform I've built to bring awareness to others about various aspects that we go through as Indigenous people. Mainly, I discuss the importance of our stories and beliefs, the true history of the struggle we faced for over the last 400 years, and the present-day issues that remain today due to colonization. As I continue on my journey, I hope to inspire other Indigenous creatives like myself, being a voice they can trust and look up to. Someone who my younger self would look up to and be reminded of how strong we really are. I want to help others find their voices, help them realize they are not alone, and help them understand the connections and significance of art and culture. My goal for the future is to bring my work to art galleries, cultural exhibitions, fashion shows, anywhere that provides a platform to share the stories and traditions of my community, and to a global audience to help my people have a voice. Now more than ever, we have the opportunity to speak where our ancestors could not, and that is why I dedicate everything I do to honoring my people through my beadwork. Overall, if you take anything from what I've said today, please take this. Being connected to your culture is much more than creating art. You need to give back to your community whenever you can. You need to remain humble to truly appreciate the opportunities we have today, and you need to continue to learn and listen to those who are willing to teach you in your communities. Thank you so much for hearing me today, and if you want to follow me on my journey, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Beads by Beans or through my website www.beadsbybeans.com. Pilamiat Natoksha Kye.
Hello and welcome to the Wopila Gathering. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Anna Mason. I'm the Membership Program Manager for Lakota People's Law Project and have the big honor of helping to put on this gathering. In addition to today being Lakota Law's third annual Wopila Gathering, it is also Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday is an international day of giving where people can help power and uplift nonprofit organizations. So if you appreciate and align with the messages that you're hearing today of Indigenous sovereignty and environmental and Native justice, then please, I urge you to give from the heart in support of the work of Lakota Law. Today, all donations are being doubled, so your gift will have twice the impact. If you aren't already there, head on over to lakotalaw.org/Wopila. There you can continue watching this live stream and you can donate from the heart and have that gift doubled. So if you're able to give $10, it becomes $20, $100 magically, thanks to a generous donor, becomes $200. So today is truly a great day to make a big impact. You can also, on that page, lakotalaw.org/Wopila, you can become a member with a monthly donation. That will get you access to member-only online events like this one that happen throughout the year, and it will truly sustain the mission of Lakota Law. So whether a one-time donation or a monthly membership donation, please give what you can. Today on Giving Tuesday, in honor of the Wopila Gathering, your tax-deductible gift will make a big difference for Native justice. We did set a goal this year of $25,000 to help us resist harmful extraction, protect sacred lands and waters, and safeguard Native children, and more. So please give what you can. Every dollar helps in a big way. Head on over to lakotalaw.org/Wopila and donate from your heart. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Anna, and thank you to Keely Eagle Shield, and James Jones. That was Notorious Cree right there, who you saw. Please follow those guys. Maybe at the end of our presentation, at the end of our show, we're going to include links to all of these people, because these are amazing people. These are people who've used their talents and just built themselves up from the ground up, and we're so thankful that they're sharing who they are. They're sharing their voices. That's we couldn't be more inspired by that, or honored, or activated. Now, Dove Korfkorn is an attorney who's fresh out of law school, but who's jumped right in. That's who you're seeing on the screen right now with me, and of course Tokata. Iron Eyes, maybe you guys have tapped in before to our network and were able to catch Tokata and Dove in some of our discussions, but we definitely, I'm going to ask for help in keeping track of time. I'm probably the worst at keeping track of time, so I started a timer just now so that we don't go over, but we have been, I don't even remember when Tokata joined the squad, probably in February, March, or something like that of 2023, I want to say.
Yeah.
And
End of January.
January. Okay, and Dove's been associated with Lakota Law as an intern when he was at NYU. He was interfacing with our team a long time ago, but we officially hired him on again not too long ago, probably a few months ago. Things go so fast around here that, you know, I lose track. I lose track of time, and I lose track of the Gregorian concept of time, because we're like in the trenches, literally. We're in the struggle out here, and we're doing our best to organize a legal front, a media front, and a policy front. All of those areas, we are looking to be completely dug in. And to tap into all around, not only the indigenous space, but just the social justice and environmental justice phase. And ever since Tokata and Dove have been on, Tokata and myself are here in Lakota country, by the Black Hills, and Dove is in between the Black Hills and Tewa and other country in the Santa Fe area, Albuquerque area, and sometimes Santa Cruz. But anyhow, I want to give them each an opportunity to introduce themselves, and we want to cover our fight against corporate extraction. There's a lot going on, and rather than providing an overview about what we've been up to in the Black Hills, concerning lithium mining and up in Standing Rock, concerning the Dakota Access Pipeline, and even the conversations we've been having around the conflicts or the oppression, or however you want to recognize the completely heart-wrenching times we're in right now, what we're being confronted with as human beings. We've been completely upfront, truthful, and accountable with how we stand in these very divisive, very complicated, complex matters that require one to dig in a little more than just what you're going to see, on Instagram or on TikTok or on social media, or from pundits, from talking heads, the world over, the news stream over. So thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for supporting us. And I'm going to go to Dove. I want Dove just to introduce himself, and maybe we can talk about a little of what we're working on, and then we'll ask Tokata to go ahead and tap into.
Hey, yeah, Chase. Appreciate the introduction, as always. It's a privilege to work with you and also with this organization. I'd say, well, before I talk about myself, I'm here because of DAPL, I think, is the first place my work with Indian country got deeper, and that's almost 10 years ago. And the irony of it now is that coming on full time as an attorney for Lakota People's Law Project, one of the first cases I've been thrown into has been DAPL round 2, with all that's been going on with the Army Corps and their public comment hearing and process. But a bit about myself. My name is Dove Korfkorn. I'm a Jew. I grew up in New York City, what they call New York City. I spent a lot of time before college, during college, and some after college, working very closely with the Israeli-Palestinian situation, trying to fight occupation, Israeli settler colonial military control of Palestinian peoples and their lives. But I also spent a lot of time working around criminal justice issues, specifically death penalty, and decarcerating, prisons where most people in those prisons were there for minor offenses, drug crimes, petty offenses. But Indian country got me early on in college. I went to a college, Dartmouth College, that had a very large Native students population and a lot of Native professors and a Native studies department. And I really had no idea what I was walking into when I got to college, and left with amazing friends and connections, and frankly, an understanding of truthful American history and reality that I think a lot of people, settlers in America, don't interact with. And I consider that a gift to have been exposed to. So yeah, I went to NYU for law school. I spent most of my time outside of class at NYU working on federal, appellate, and Supreme Court casework surrounding Indian law and tribal sovereignty, including the Brackeen case, which involved the Indian Child Welfare Act, which we got some good news about over the summer, and Lakota Law was involved with. We wrote a brief last year, and it seems to have been well received by the judges and other legal organizations that we work with. But most of my work these days is concentrated around environmental justice, stopping pipelines, fighting mines, and protecting the land, sacred sites, people's water. And it's a privilege to be here. Thanks, Chase.
Thank you. Tokata, do you want to take a couple moments to introduce yourself and just kind of do a brief, like just mention what you've been working on, and we can talk about that as the conversation goes on here.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Tokata Iron Eyes. I'm from Standing Rock. Originally, Chase is my dad. We've been living on Pine Ridge for a good while now. I have been working on a piece about some work I did in September into October. I went to DC for a caravan, and I think we messaged around this also. this caravan went on Leonard Peltier's birthday, which I believe is September the 12th, and they petitioned for his clemency. And I don't think anybody was technically arrested, which was one of the problems. Anyway, it's sort of like, and especially in DC, this is a thing where resistance fighters, activists, but also just like people who are in the streets and who want to utilize their platforms or simply their bodies, right, to make a statement. The optics of them being criminalized by the state is incredibly useful in garnering support of like other oppressed people. And so when those optics are not provided, because police are becoming very wise to sort of the antics of protest right now, it makes things a lot harder. And especially in Leonard's situation, I think, where in the circles in which he's being talked about, the subject is almost overexhausted. Like they're really, those optics are really valuable, almost, right to like reignite the flame of that movement. And then from DC, that rally was outside of the White House. I went to New York City to participate in a climate week. And it was sort of my first time back in the space as a climate activist. There was like a bunch of events happening, a bunch of different like NGOs, you know, sort of like networking things happening. But there was also this huge, probably one of the biggest marches for climate that happened. And I got to be a part of the art team, so the people who made all of the signage for the people who were going to be at the front of the march. I was not there in making all of it, but like sort of assembling it. So making sure that these signs and things were easily holdable for people over a period of several hours and through various different streets and stuff. I also ended up marshaling the climate march, which was really intense. You never want to be, you know, the sort of guardrail between the streets of New York City and a group of civilians. That one was rough. But so that's sort of the piece that I'm writing now. And the thing about it is that it was a little late, and then October 7th happened. Oh my, no. October 7th?
Yeah.
See, you know what? I did not know you did all that. And there's sometimes as a parent, you just rather not hear about things. Yeah, I was on this front line and that front line, and I might have been subjected to potential dangerous situations. But the thing is, in activism work, in frontline work, we are trying to be safe. There are people we're training each other to be safe, but to be clear, when an institutional perspective on law and order is imposed on us by the state, and that institutional version of law and order is only to protect the capital and the property of those who own capital and property, that's why we always find ourselves having to go to the front line in the first place. So when we talk about resistance and resurgence, this is in the lives we live. It's not, I fully respect theory, and I fully respect people who articulate all of the substance and the things that undergird the lives that we were born into, the struggle that we were born into. I always come across it never fails. It's just a matter of time before we're going to have to confront some tentacle of the corporate extractive war machine. It's going to disturb our peace. And Dove, maybe we could start talking about Standing Rock and about your experience when the Army Corps of Engineers, who I have a lengthy oppressive relationship with, dating back to the Flood Control Act in 1944. And then at the time when my grandmother, who is sitting next to Tocata right now, I mean, my mother and her grandmother were living in areas that were flooded out. You know, today it would be a war crime. Today it would be a crime against humanity. Today we would call it ethnic cleansing. My mother and her grandmothers were forcibly removed from the riverbed, and we're still engaged in that conflict, in that relationship. So Tocata, be thinking about Standing Rock as well. If you have any updates to share, or just share what you feel like sharing. But Dove, if you could tell our support network your experience of what went down in Bismarck, North Dakota, I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, I'll try. You know, as as like an outsider, right? Like I'm not a tribal member. I'm not native. I'm definitely not from Standing Rock. Um, on one hand, that means that there's a lot of catching up I have to do and learning I have to do. But on the other hand, it means that I kind of walk in with a slightly less jaded perspective, because the Army Corps is not my enemy, right? I disagree with their entire system and way of acting and their policies, but they're not taking my land. They're not inundating my farming areas, the places where I live and my family lives. But I now, as someone who's caught up in the law, see the power they have. And it's not just the Army Corps, right? It's the Bureau of Land Management, it's the U.S. Forest Service, these very, very established federal agencies that more or less can do whatever they want as long as they say they've consulted the right entities, usually the tribes. But what went down in Bismarck uh, follows, 7 or 8 years of a concerted cover up by the federal government, to basically allow a pipeline called DAPL to flow oil without a valid environmental impact statement, without a valid easement under the Missouri River. The newest environmental impact statement that was released as a draft concerns this lake on Standing Rock called Lake Oahe, and it's the fourth largest reservoir in the United States. It provides drinking water for all of Standing Rock. The waters of that area flow down to an area that affects about 20 million people. And so the easement to basically build a pipeline under the Missouri River and under this reservoir is required by the Army Corps' own laws, right? There needs to be a valid easement to cross a pipeline under federal property, in this case, Army Corps property. The irony of all this is that the pipeline was built 7 years ago, and oil's been flowing through this pipeline under the Missouri River for those 7 years. But what went down in Bismarck was really upsetting to see. You had a 2-day public comment hearing. Lakota Law, we were there as some of the few observers in an organization capacity. And there are 2 days of public comments. The mornings of both days were supposed to be for tribal members and tribal members only, Standing Rock, Cheyenne River, Oglala. And the evenings were devoted to just a public comment, for any community members in the Bismarck area. The first day we were there, the Army Corps tried to exclude tribal leaders, and not just tribal members, tribal leaders, people, the water director of Standing Rock, the fish and game director of Standing Rock, the communications director of Standing Rock. And it didn't really make much sense, but when you step back from it, you realize that those three people have all the information that the Army Corps doesn't want out in the open. The water director knows everything about everything when it comes to the water quality on the reservation. Fish and game knows the same as it regards the ecosystems and the animals. And the communications director, he's a wisdom keeper. He knows where all the sacred sites are at Standing Rock, and the Army Corps views him as a threat to their own narrative. So in the morning of the first day, they cut out tribal leaders, and tribal leaders had to force their way in to this meeting. And that kind of it brings back this common tactic that oppressive regimes use. It could be the American government, it could be the Israeli government, it doesn't really matter, but they force people to humiliate themselves. And when you have a 67-year-old guy who's been around the block far more times than any of these Army Corps people have ever been, who has to kind of beg and plead his way into a meeting, that sets things off on the wrong foot, and makes it pretty clear to activists, tribal leaders, water protectors that there's something going on here that's suspicious. In the evening of the first day, we were supposed to have a public comment hearing where traditionally, whether it's a Bureau of Land Management public comment, whether it's an EPA public comment hearing, any federal agency, when they have a public comment hearing, they basically have a microphone and they give it to the public, and people one after the next provide their testimony in front of a crowd of others, whether it's their supporters, their opposition, but there's a public forum for it. But what happened instead was that the Army Corps last minute, without notice, forced everybody into these curtained, siloed kind of containing rooms where you were allowed to give testimony to a stenographer. I said this in my comment, but as if you're in confession with a priest, right? Like instead of 300, 400, 500 people together, you know, passing the mic, sharing their thoughts, their perspectives on what's going on, whether they're pro or against the pipeline, it at least creates a public forum for discussion, which is a constitutional right. We're entitled to fair hearing and a public hearing with these sorts of things. But they pushed people into these rooms where one-on-one they could give testimony that could not be heard by everybody. So what happened was, which was really amazing to see, but a bunch of water protectors had come in from Minneapolis area, and someone had brought a bullhorn with them. I don't know who it was, but someone brought a bullhorn, and for hours people just started giving testimony, and the Army Corps was just embarrassed. Like they didn't know what to do. Like they didn't think this was going to happen, and every comment that was said was clearly against the pipeline. And this goes back to the fact, and I'll wrap it up, but over the last 7 or 8 years, there's been several moments where public comments have been accepted by the Army Corps, and every time that they've opened a comment period, tens of thousands. The first go around, it was 60, 70,000 people sent in comments against the pipeline. This go around, we think it's closer to 100,000 right now have submitted comments against the pipeline. But at the end of the day, the Army Corps doesn't seem to care about what the masses of people are saying, even though that's what they say they're there to consider. So the second day, the Army Corps had been embarrassed, and for the second day, they just changed everything. They went from excluding tribal leaders in the tribal meeting to allowing anybody into the tribal meeting. Then they went from having a private comment hearing the previous night to having a full-on public comment hearing. And you know, the reversal in tactic is common. It's a way to disrupt organizing and focus. And you know, it was very clear to see what was going on there. There's a bunch of other stuff that we could get into, but just the baseline is that the Army Corps owes not just to Standing Rock and other tribal members a fair public comment hearing. It also owes the same to Bismarck residents who are supportive of the pipeline. So to see that not happen and to see it completely shut down speaks volumes about the intentions of the Army Corps, and also they're incredibly aligned with the fossil fuel company and the pipeline company behind all this. We'll get to that.
It was, you know, for people who don't pay attention to our every move, you might have missed. Dove gave a video there, or gave a talk that was recorded. And we also have a whole series out in partnership with the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. And now, by extension, because of our relationships with other very key organizations, our organization is one that has stayed proximate to tribal nations, has stayed very close to the contours and the fights to expand, for me to expand and to defend tribal sovereignty. We don't charge any tribe any money that we ever help. And we've been able to help the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. We've been able to help the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And now I'm entering into a partnership with an organization called the Great Plains Tribal Water Alliance. They are going to host a gathering. And this is an organization made up of other Sioux tribes, right? The Oglala Sioux Tribe, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, and the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe are founding tribal nations of this organization. And they are in a fight for our lives, just like the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, just like Chairwoman Janet Alkire is able to continue our resistance. And our resistance is civil. Our resistance finds its way into the courtrooms of a colonial oppressor. Okay, our resistance finds its way into the halls of Congress or into Senate chambers. It finds its way into the court of public opinion, and we are able to defend peace. You know, we're going through a lot as a people right now, and I see people saying things like we need to pray for peace. That's not going to do it. We cannot simply pray for peace. We have to be willing to defend peace and to always try to stand on the righteous side of our actions and of history. And we try to do that in this organization. Tokata, I also wanted to give you space, you know, whether you want to address land back or you want to, right now we're talking about fighting the corporate extractive complex. You have had to do that since you were very young. I don't think we really fully appreciate how the Dakota Access Pipeline changed our lives. I really don't think we fully take full stock of that ever. We just continue to roll on and try to grow. But definitely want to give you space to talk about Standing Rock or anything in that realm. Oh, you're on mute.
I'll say that it's a little different from me. I think that I definitely have come to appreciate like how that movement changed my life. And I think that all of it is super relevant to one another, like each of the topics or whatever. And I just listened to, I mean, I've been doing a bunch of research sort of just on my own time, but also like as a political activist and as somebody who believes in land back, as a Lakota person, like wanting to know more about what's happening in Palestine, whether it's like history, but also just like from personal experience, right? Like poetry. I really like Mahmoud Darwish, and I think that everybody should read that as like political theory. But Palestine and the fight that is for Palestine is every fight. And this is if we as humans can recognize, right, that clean water is a human right, that every human deserves access to food, that every human deserves access to shelter, everybody deserves to pray the way that they want to, and like these are very, very simple things that every human can agree on, and that is also, I think, the basis of what Standing Rock was as a movement, was this very simple, simple ask of being like, listen, firstly, the Missouri River is, you know, home to the clean water of 8 million people, but also this is the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe's only source of clean water. And this pipeline was moved in a pseudo hate crime from the predominantly white community north of it to right above its peoples. You know what I mean? Like that, and those things are, I think, you know, everybody when they start looking at the history of colonizing bodies anywhere can start to draw these through lines of like, just to, for example, right, the violations of the laws of war that have gone on, and that are happening right now, is indiscriminately attacking, in general, indiscriminately attacking civilians, taking hostages, punishing civilians for fighters, for the actions of fighters, and denying or withholding humanitarian aid. And so that is like, those are things that have happened to every colonized people on the planet. That is the same method. It happened to Jews before Israel existed, type of thing. And so and also just like personally, I think that I have a really strong curiosity, but also just an empathy for the people of Palestine and specifically the children of Palestine, because I understand, right? Like I understood from the very beginning that the United States was a baby in terms of its life as a state. The length of its nationhood, you know what I mean? And so I understood us to native people to still actively be in a state of war against the United States, and I still understand it that way. But what Palestine made me realize, right, is that like even though I often feel that I'm grappling very intensely with all of these sort of like obscure, almost intangible things, right? My trauma is a lot more generational than it is physical now for me. And probably for most Native peoples in the United States, because not all of us are afforded, right? That like essentially the rights to even live in these little weird prisoner of war camps that we've turned into like the solace of our cultures, and our ways of life. We've turned these little silos into like weird time capsules. And my father and his political analysis of colonialism in the United States, and then his experience in Palestine a couple of years ago. He told me about this person called Ahed Tamimi, who is currently being detained by the IDF. Her and her father were kidnapped from the West Bank like a week or so ago. But what's interesting about Ahed is that she was 16 when she was sentenced to prison for like 8 or 9 months. And I heard about her story because there were like videos of it, and she punched an IDF officer in the face for like wounding one of her little cousins. And that story of like bravery, but also, right, like, and now thinking about what's happening in Gaza, and thinking about like actual martyrdom, childhood is being robbed from the children of the oppressed, and that is, I mean, it hurts really bad. Actually, I spoke with Angelina Jolie about this, and she's been very vocal recently. I think in her role as like some sort of UN ambassador about, demanding a ceasefire. In, but she wrote a book about, I think it's called The Rights of Children, and it's with Amnesty International, and it talks about exactly this, right? Because not only are children like devoid of the responsibility of the state, but they are also devoid of the responsibility or the consequence, right, that comes from the actions of their parents, but also just every adult around them. And so where is the agency for these beings who had nothing to do with the war or the political climate or landscape that existed before that? Like the innocents, who don't even know like that there's like, I don't know, that there's more than this. Like I that's sorry, I went off on a crazy tangent. Somebody else go now.
Well, yeah,
Maybe, yeah, go ahead, Dove.
yeah. It's Tokata's 100,000% right. It's the elephant. I used this analogy the other day, but like Palestine is not the elephant in the room. It's the elephant that just fell on the house. Like the roof is broken. Every floor beneath it is broken, and it's not something we shouldn't just like casually acknowledge. It's a huge moral issue that we need to address as people. And I'm a Jew. I grew up in a very religious, conservative, ideologically Zionist community. I was kicked out of that community when I was 17 because of my politics. I spent a couple years on the ground in Palestine, saw things that I'm sitting here, oh my God, it was so hard to witness, but like I wasn't the one experiencing it, but to just see things and just have to compartmentalize it and have it all clash with how I was raised, right? Like Israel is the defense mechanism, a place of security for the world's Jews, right? The Holocaust, we can't allow that to happen again. But the subtext is we can't allow the Holocaust to happen again to us, but we don't really care what happens to other people as long as we don't, meaning Zionist Jews who are supportive of Israeli nationalism, as long as we don't ever face violence, we're fine causing it to other people like that. And as a Jew, as an anti-Zionist Jew, Judaism has been weaponized by the Israeli government for a long time now, and it's in bed, with the American military-industrial complex. Without U.S. support, Israel would not really exist the way it does today at all. And it's tricky because it takes. I learned this from DAPL, and now we'll get to the lithium stuff soon. But it takes. Unfortunately, it takes time for consensus to build. Like before DAPL, maybe we were aware of global warming to some extent, but consensus against fossil fuels until DAPL happened. And now just, the whole progressive side of the political aisle is anti-fossil fuels. In the 40s, America didn't allow Jews fleeing the death camps in Nazi Germany, didn't allow them into the United States. And obviously that brings up a whole question about settler colonialism and immigration and stuff. But, there was a time when Jews were really just victims and the US didn't provide them haven. And we're seeing the same thing happen again now. You have a president that has taken, it's not that he's confusing the issues, is that he's just taking the completely wrong side. And I've spent time in Burlington, Vermont, seeing 3 men in their 20s get shot in the back because they were speaking Arabic and wearing kafia. That says everything you need to know about what America allows to fester. And to bring it back to the work we do here, like fighting for the land and the water and decolonizing this island, Turtle Island. Every fascist in the last 200 years has taken notes out of the American playbook. Andrew Jackson, mastered the art of the death march. He mastered the art of ethnic cleansing. He hated Native people to the core. Even when Congress said he couldn't expel the Cherokee from Georgia, he did it anyways. Even when the Supreme Court said he couldn't, he did it anyways. Hitler read Jackson's diaries. He worshipped Andrew Jackson, and he viewed death marches as a very useful means of destroying people and uprooting their lives. Not even flash forward. In 1948, Israel systematically dispossessed almost 1 million Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank that we call today, and Israel, what Israel calls Israel, and forced them to walk. 1 million people forced them to walk wherever they could to get out of what was becoming the Israeli state. And so, you have an Israeli government in 1948 that was taking cues out of previous fascist, previous genociders' playbooks. But now, 70 years later, it doesn't even need to look to history. It can just look to its own regime, its own policies. And what saddens me the most is that it takes carpet bombing civilians for the world to say there's a problem here. The problem there isn't just ethnic cleansing and dropping bombs on people indiscriminately. It's 70 years of abject military control of people's lives. We talk about Israel being an apartheid regime. Apartheid doesn't even cut it for a lot of instances. The Israeli state, for its own citizens, is arguably an apartheid regime. Israel, African citizens of Israel, and immigrants like non-Jewish Israelis face incredible discrimination across the board in that country. But when it comes to the West Bank and when it comes to Gaza, it's a completely different reality. The West Bank is under complete military surveillance. I'll say a couple of things and I'll back off this issue for a sec. But I was standing on the house of a friend in a refugee camp near Bethlehem, and it was 6 o'clock at night, and the sun was coming down, and I saw it with him, like a bunch of Israeli soldiers with their guns drawn and dogs just running through the camp. And I asked what's going on. And he said, well, every night around this time, the soldiers come and they take children with them to the prisons because they always, kids throw rocks. They curse at the soldiers. I would do the same. And they just get disappeared. They get taken. And the way this kid told me, he was a camper of mine. He must have been like 16. The way he said it to me was like as if there's nothing he can do about it. It's almost normal for him. Obviously it's upsetting, but it's just like there's this acceptance of helplessness that was, I can't even imagine. Gaza is a whole different story. I mean, that it's not just under surveillance, it's under complete siege. You can't leave unless you have a very specific permit. It's a tiny landmass. There's really nowhere to go. And the fact that we live in a country called the United States that provides Israel with $4 billion of aid, and most countries that America gives aid to every year, it's for its health, its infrastructure. It's not for its military. The Israeli case is an exception, and most of the $4 billion that Israel receives every year from the U.S. goes right to its military. And what does that mean? Well, Israel's been framed to the West as this vulnerable, defenseless actor, but it also has nuclear weapons, and it has state-of-the-art military technology, and it can really do whatever it wants. So what I'm just getting at is we need a consensus, and there's not even a consensus around ceasefire. I mean, most Americans are supportive of a ceasefire, but at our levels of government, even the Democrats that swear to have progressive values, even they can't get behind a ceasefire. And it makes you wonder why. And I think the simple answer is what we saw similarly in DAPL. We've seen it in lithium mining across the continent now, is that government and industry are organized together. And it's in the interest of the government to allow bombs to fall, because every bomb that falls on Gaza is another defense contract executed. It's money for the military industrial complex. So it's all one system,
This is why, and we thank you for your graciousness with this, because this is uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable for people to see what is happening over there. Susan Sarandon got canceled because she's speaking about Israel-Palestine. Melissa Barrera got canceled because she's speaking about Israel-Palestine. So if we don't speak about it and it's going on in front of us, then who are we? We have to be willing to feel uncomfortable. We talk about it because there's $500 billion of recoverable gas off of the coast of Gaza. How is it that Dick Cheney, the owner of Halliburton, is operating gas and or oil fields in Syria? Like how is that? How is it that $3.4 billion? They offered us in the Black Hills, and I want to go back to the Black Hills because we are engaged in a fight here right now. They're trying to mine for lithium in the Black Hills. They offered $3.4 billion as a forced settlement for the Black Hills. And it was Chief Frank Foolscrow who said, "You must think I'm a fool, that you're offering to pay me 3.4, at the time it was only 100 million. You're offering to pay me with pieces of paper that you made from stealing, selling, and enriching yourselves in your country from my resources." Chief Frank Foolscrow said this. "You must think I'm a fool." So right now, the United States government is giving the state of Israel a Black Hills settlement every single year. They get that, and it goes right to their militaries. And it's not the Israelis or the Palestinians or the Americans or the Canadians or whatever. It's companies like Boeing. It's companies like the Rand Corporation and Daniel Ellsberg and all of the things he exposed there with the Gulf of Tonkin. It's Northrop Grumman. It's all of the war profiteers that are disturbing our peace. We were never really at peace. Like Toccata was saying, as Native people, the Indian wars have never ended, but we're using what we have within ourselves to empower indigenous nationhood and indigenous sovereignty. Indigenous nationhood is now denied to tribal nations. There's a reason why it doesn't matter if it's the red team or the blue team or whoever in the White House or in the Congress or in the Senate, they do not use the term nations. They call us tribes. There is a reality of the federalized Indian, the existence of the federalized Indian. And we see it confronting us on all aspects. But right now, the state of South Dakota, through its governor, Kristi Noem, and you're definitely going to hear about Kristi Noem if you pay attention to our channels. She is a governor. She is kind of like a loose cannon, I will say. She's the akin of Governor Stitt in Oklahoma. He is an active Indian fighter. And in all respects, it's usually a governor and an attorney general. And they have the intellectual, the colonial violence that they can orchestrate through their institutions, through the arms and institutions of their state. But right now, Kristi Noem, the state of South Dakota, is trying to steal untold, unquantified amounts of the Missouri River from the Sioux Nation, who possess a predecessor sovereign right to that water, but they're trying to pump it in a 6-foot diameter pipeline all the way to the Black Hills, and they're not trying to recognize the Great Plains Tribal Water Alliance or the Sioux Nation's inherent right and treaty right to that water, because we don't have the wherewithal, the financial or political wherewithal to defend ourselves from colonial violence. Because we don't have that, they just do it and they try to ignore us, and they hope that the American people are not paying attention. But because you've helped us meet our goal tonight, I want to send a special thank you to our friends Jeb and Nicole, and also they have Tashina and Justin at Nomadics Teepees. They made a $5,000 donation. Big respects for that. And then people poured in and put us over the $25,000 goal already. But in the indigenous nonprofit industrial complex that we find ourselves, we don't want to operate in a place of scarcity. We want to move this to a place of abundance, because there are a ton of native-led organizations that are operating out here, that are operating all over the country of the United States and Canada. Our organization did not start off Native-led, but I was just named the director of Lakota People's Law Project, and we're in a forward movement to put a Native board, a majority Native board in place that we will answer to. But there's value in building bridges outside of the indigenous world. We were able to orchestrate the kind of powerful work that we're doing right now here on the ground in Lakota country, in the Black Hills area. And I want to give, I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to thank you guys for offering your words. I don't want to, it's very real. I think it's important that we don't ignore the crises of our day, the crimes against humanity that are being committed right now. We don't ignore that, but we're also, we're fighting the same enemies. They are corporate extractive enemies.
People versus state. That's what it's about at the end of the day.
Well, say that again.
I said it's people versus state. It will always be people versus state. Like I just like, I don't know how. I mean, we've already talked about this enough, but actually that's not true. Islamophobia and anti-Semitism are rampant everywhere. Like, that is something that's true right now. And I think that we can look at this, right? I mean, we can look at it for the atrocity that it is, but we can also use it, this rage and the hurt around it as a tool, because I think that it is evidence that the system is literally imploding. Like, we are watching it literally fall apart in front of us. It doesn't work. And it will not work. And Israel will fail. And the United States, in its own colonial project, will fail, because there is no justifiable reason. There is no righteousness in genocide. And if the United States as a country to this day cannot name what it's done to its own indigenous people as genocide, then I really like, I think that it is a moot point. It is a moot point to be arguing amongst each other for scraps, and more than that, to look like our fucking bully. That is, they've robbed us of dignity. Like, if that's where we're at. Yeah. And also like in that right, like seeing the global solidarity for the people of Gaza, and just the people, especially from like the global south, who are just like, nah, Yankee, we fucking see you, and this will not fly anymore. Like you will not get away with this, and we will not let you like rewrite history. It cannot last like this, and I think that is sort of like the saving grace for me, as we all sort of traverse the sea of traumatic videos and experiences that we're just a tap away from on Instagram. Like, there's a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of outrage, and people are too moved to sit still again. I think everybody has, it's too up close and personal, and also obvious. Like, Britain and the US are just obvious bullies unto the rest of the world. And we are tired. Working class people everywhere, oppressed people everywhere, indigenous people everywhere. We're tired. This is enough. Like, literally, like, yeah. And I just want to say, like, yeah, just thank you for everybody, and also, like, I don't mean to ever like speak out of turn. I just, I speak from my own experience, and yeah, I appreciate everybody.
Hey, Chase, I think we should talk a bit about lithium for a few. I think we have like 5-8 minutes or so.
Let me look at because Tokata is here, and because Dove is not very much older than Tokata, we're witnessing what's important to our coming generations, and we want to be part of that. We don't want to get left back and be like the old goats. You know what I'm saying? Like, we want to fight the right fight. But go ahead, Dove. We have short time. We'll get it all give a time warning when we got to bounce out.
Yeah. Well, I think you were starting to allude to it real briefly, Chase, but we've been involved in resisting the lithium push over the last year and a half or two. If anyone knows about lithium, it's the primary component in electric car batteries. There's a few other minerals that are needed: cobalt, nickel, things like that. But lithium is a salt, and the largest open pit lithium mine in the world, and definitely in the continent, but I think the world is underway right now in Paiute Shoshone country, northern Nevada. And Chase was out there for a while back in the spring, forming a resistance camp that, to speak about government and industry organized. The mining company created a brilliant strategy. They basically shut down the protest by suing anybody who was there trespassing. But here's the kicker, is that the mine is on federal land, on Bureau of Land Management land, and it's called Thacker Pass. And the BLM gives these mining companies about a 40-year lease, where in most cases the company just has to pay $1 a year to rent, hundreds, if not thousands, of square acres of land, which is just unbelievable. Like, when everyone else is out in the streets, like, unable to pay rent, and you have these massive mining companies that are going to make tens, hundreds of billions of dollars over a couple of decades off of public land that not too long ago was not public land. It was just land, But the issue with this is that lithium is incredibly toxic, and the way it's extracted from the earth, usually in open pit mining operations, is by pumping the ground with sulfuric acid, which is 1 teaspoon of sulfuric acid would kill any of us. Sulfuric acid is made from a number of compounds, the first of which is called molten sulfur. And molten sulfur is the leading byproduct of oil refineries. So basically, you have these lithium mining companies who are committed to greening the planet, right? Bringing electric cars, the renewable energy transition, but who are far more dependent on fossil fuels than they'll ever say they are. In fact, for every ton of lithium that's produced at this mine, more than 1 ton of carbon emissions will be produced, which just doesn't really make any sense given their narrative. The mine itself at Thacker Pass It's in an area called Pahimahah, which has a number of massacres that have occurred over the last couple centuries, one of which was a mass killing by U.S. cavalry, Nevada cavalry, of Numu, Shoshone Paiute people. And the descendants of the last known survivors are keeping the fight alive. But the federal government has acknowledged that this area was a massacre site. There's bones, there's remains, but the judge that heard the case pretended like that information was not available yet because it had not been entered into the federal register. It's this whole bureaucratic process. The point is, though, is that there's a massive cover-up going on in northern Nevada because someone named Elon Musk has poured hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into it. General Motors has built a $700 million refinery on the Gulf of Mexico in Texas to process this lithium and convert it into a material usable in electric cars. There's so much investment going into this right now that we're unable, it seems, in the moment to build a resistance. But the good thing is that Chase, myself, and other attorneys in the Black Hills region are starting to build some form of a legal strategy to resist this lithium onslaught, because in the Black Hills there are about 10 or 12, I forget the exact number, new lithium projects that are proposed in Forest Service land in the Black Hills. And the Black Hills are obviously sacred to Lakota people. They're sacred to white people. You know, that's where Mount Rushmore is. It's a beautiful place. But there isn't enough truth telling around this issue. And my only worry is, as we saw with DAPL, right? The opposition, the consensus against fossil fuels followed DAPL. And now anyone in their right mind is against fossil fuels, it seems. But it's concerning that it might take that long for the world to realize that lithium is also a huge problem. And just to wrap up there, the state of South Dakota regards lithium in the same category as sand and gravel, even though it's incredibly toxic to the atmosphere, to the waters, to people's communities. It doesn't treat it that way. And that's another very clear example of the organization between government and industry. And so I just want to leave on a hopeful note, is that we're heading to Rapid City, Chase and I and Chuck and some other people that help run this organization. And we're going to engage in conversations with water protectors, with tribal leaders, with lawyers about how to resist this new onslaught of mining. And, hopefully in the next few months, we'll have some positive traction to share.
Any closing thoughts, Tokata? You might be on mute. Make sure you're off mute and throw grandma in there if you can.
Oh, wait, before I say, Chukado, just because it'll probably relate to what you said, Joe Biden has committed himself to being the president who establishes the first green military. So to bring it back to Palestine, Joe Biden wants to use renewable energy to power fighter jets, bombing equipment, right, and Humvees. He wants to be that guy, and that's what's going on here.
Oh, he is that guy. Oh, Joe Nakba, Knock Biden. Is that what they're calling him? Joe Knock Biden. Yeah, Palestinian aunties coined that one. But also, yeah. I mean, there's other like crazy ties. Like I think it's something like either some police from like Bismarck from North Dakota or Tiger Swan itself, the private security agency hired by Dakota Access. They were trained like in Israel by the IDF. Like it literally is like the same folks, and also just like the number of like American soldiers over there is intense, and also like I think that this is like it's been super important for me, just like thinking about this. But I think it was Toni Morrison, maybe on Democracy Now! Like a couple weeks ago. They put like one of her talks there. She spoke about her experience going to Palestine, and she had written before that trip. She had written about Israel and the forming of Israel and what had happened there. Like she had written a piece essentially analyzing what Israel was for Jewish folks as like reparations for Black people. It was like a think piece on that sort of dynamic. And so just for me, like thinking about like like land back. Like this stuff is really seriously important, like to be analyzing, because if we uh, just as people, like if we want to do better, like we have to learn how to undo the cyclical thing that is happening, where we are becoming the ones who hurt ourselves almost before like the colonizer can do it. And then this thing that I was talking about, where I was saying like it provides us no dignity to strive to look like our bully. Like that's what it is, and that's why these conversations are so important, because that is the main force, you know, that pushes momentum through these movements, is us really analyzing what's happening, the humanness of it, and how we're going to deal and like find our way back to one another after traumatizing each other like this. I'm talking about like as a global community, and that's how everybody should be talking and thinking in a time where we are facing a climate crisis. Like that's where everyone's political minds needs to be at.
This is where we're gonna wrap up. But one thing that Tokata and Dove remind me by their analysis and critique and expression is that those who don't want us to recognize our power and to realize our power are trying to downplay and get us to recede into a place of nihilism, meaninglessness, powerlessness. They want to impact the force of our spirit, and we have to realize that we cannot retreat. We have to step forward and claim our lives and fight for our lives. It's not some amorphous oppressor out there that is oppressing and killing the working families of the world and who are instituting genocide in real time. There are real people behind those corporations, and we thank you for supporting us. We thank you for giving us the freedom and to be bold. We couldn't say what we're saying. Can you imagine? I mean, look what's happening to people getting canceled because they're disturbing the bread and the circus. We can say what needs to be said because there are supporters who support our work, like Nomadics Teepee, like the thousands of people who've donated tonight, who pushed us over that goal. You're consciously impacting our evolution, and our evolution in our organization is to defend Indigenous sovereignty. December 6th and 7th, we're going to be participating in the Great Plains Tribal Water Alliance, not only to fight and defend treaty rights and Indigenous sovereignty in the Black Hills with respect to lithium mining, but our water rights are being completely ignored. And when we talk about a climate crisis, we should be defending water with our lives. That's what No DAPL was about. Land back is also one of the pillars of our organization. Tokata and her friends, Tokata's mother, in 2012, kicked off and instigated the land back in the digital era. That was way back when we reclaimed the sacred site of Peshla. And the defense of sacred sites is something that relates to the purveying and the proliferation of sacred metaphysics, sacred indigenous metaphysics, who are elders like Ed Starr and Tim Mintz, other knowledge keepers, other wisdom keepers, those who are seeking purpose and meaning still to this day and trying to share it with us. We want to empower them. We want to work with them. We're not trying to come from a place of competition. There is so much talent and so much spirit right where we live, right here in Lakota country or Ocheti Shakomi, that we want to empower it all. And we want to stay connected to our communities. Is it hard to live here on the reservation? Do I enjoy these trenches? Not particularly, but they made me who I am. They made me who I am. And we owe a duty to our people to provide opportunity and a way out. This is why I stay close to tribal governments, because there's so much potential there. Anyway, I want to thank you all for listening. Like, thank you for indulging us. Thank you for giving us the grace to talk about what's real. That's how we're going to continue to build. Thank you, Dove. Thank you, Tokata. It's crazy, absolutely nuts and insane that Tokata is 20 years old and she's on this screen doing what she can, doing to lead and to empower. And anyway, I just want to thank you both before we X out of our session here.
Thank you too.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Chase.
Thank you, everyone.
Did you know native nations are considered domestic dependent nations on our own land? It's your favorite land back baddie, and let's talk about the history of tribal governance. In August of 1881, Lakota man Crow Dog shot and killed Spotted Tail. Prior to this, native communities had full autonomy over crimes committed by natives against natives on reservation land. The matter was resolved in tribal courts. However, this wasn't enough in the eyes of white congressmen. Crow Dog was arrested by the state of South Dakota for the murder of Spotted Tail and sentenced to hang. The decision was appealed at the Supreme Court, ruling that the arrest of Crow Dog violated tribal sovereignty. Consequently, in 1885, the Major Crimes Act was passed, placing 15 major crimes under federal jurisdiction. Congress would also pass Public Law 280 in 1953, giving 5 states criminal jurisdiction over natives living on reservations. Then, in 1973, a non-native by the name of Mark Oliphant was arrested and charged in the Port Madison Indian Reservation. He appealed, claiming he was not subject to tribal authority because he wasn't native. Finally, in 1978, the Supreme Court ruled in Oliphant's favor, stating tribes cannot exercise powers terminated by Congress or inconsistent with their status as domestic dependent nations. I share this history in honor of my late grandfather, Chief of Chiefs Leonard Crow Dog Sr., who believed in native ways of governing people, land, body, and spirit. He believed that one day, from Alaska to La Tierra de Fuego, we would be connected again. He believed in learning the history of native peoples and using these lessons to mold the future. He inspired everything that I do. Happy Native American Heritage Month.
They stole the land, but they couldn't take our spirit.
Check this out.
They fear the end of their world, but they forget we are building a future that belongs to us all. We are the ones our ancestors prayed for. We are the land. We are the land. We are the land.
Flexing where you from when that's just stolen land. Pull up to the Capitol with murder plans. Sign the Constitution with some bloody hands. Fuck your business plan, it's our people's land. Flexing where you from when that's just stolen land. Pull up to the Capitol with murder plans. Sign the Constitution with some bloody hands. Fuck your business plan, it's our people's land. Vamonos, sorry bro, I'm colonized, I want a lot of gold. Let them know, see the same inside my little bro. Close the door and say I'm on it long time ago. Pain of living in the case my daddy letting go. Work around the clock but he ain't making more. He ain't coming home, still ain't healing up. Medicine don't work with poison in your blood. I see the drugs and the alcohol replace the love. You're wearing the culture as a costume, yeah, it's overdone. While my sisters miss it and murder, the numbers going up. Silence and suicide on the roads, my people lost enough. You ain't about the healing of our youth, don't even talk to us. Hated from the history, it's obvious. Younger generation carry all of this. Do it for the elders, watch it over us. We leading the movement, watch his body this. Flexing where you from when that's just stolen land. Pull up to the Capitol with murder plans. Sign the Constitution with some bloody hands. Fuck your business plan, it's our people's land. Flexing where you from when that's just stolen land. Pull up to the Capitol with murder plans. Sign the Constitution with some bloody hands. Fuck your business plan, it's our people's land. land. A wolf in sheep's clothing, treaties all broken. They built this nation off lies that they've spoken. Mask on for the moment, last call for the chosen. Los bares en la noche, nos quitaron las voces. They took the language and culture, they took the flag to the Vatican. I ain't gon' pray to your God, hit a lick and bring him back again. Run that, I ain't gon' pass it or done that. I've been the weight on the front back. Sun is rising from the comeback, it's a bloodbath. And I got hella trauma to unpack. And I run with the pack in the moonlight. Hit a victory lap and we're all black till we take it all back in the view right. This a motherfucking war camp. I know they gon' say they don't want that, but they coming straight for the land, for the place where we stand, so we taking it all back. Take it all back. Flexing where you from when that's just stolen land. Pull up to the Capitol with murder plans. Sign the Constitution with some bloody hands. Fuck your business plan, it's our people's land. Flexing where you from when that's just stolen land. Pull up to the Capitol with murder plans. Sign the Constitution with some bloody hands. Fuck your business plan, it's our people's land.
Hello everyone, it's me again, Anna Mason, the Membership Program Manager for Lakota People's Law Project, and I hope you are having as much fun as I am today on Giving Tuesday at our third annual Wopila Gathering. If you aren't already there, head on over to lakotalaw.org/Wopila. There you can continue watching this live stream, and importantly, you can give back in support of this gathering and the mission of Lakota Law. There at lakotalaw.org/Wopila, you'll see a form to the right of the live stream where you can give a tax-deductible gift, either a one-time donation or a monthly membership qualifying gift. And all of those gifts will be doubled. That's right. Today we have a match going on all day long, thanks to a very generous donor. So your gift today will have twice the impact. We have a goal of hitting $25,000. Every dollar you give will be doubled and is helping get us closer to hitting that goal. What does your money go to support, you might ask? Excellent question. Your donation will help further the mission of Lakota Law by supporting our ongoing campaigns to resist harmful extraction, protect sacred lands and waters, and safeguard Indigenous children, and more. So every dollar you give is meaningful and will be used wisely to further Indigenous justice and sovereignty. We simply cannot do this alone. It takes all of us coming together. So please give from your heart today. Also, lower down on that page, you'll see the option to create and share your own fundraiser on behalf of Lakota Law. So that's another great way to support this work. Big thanks to those of you who've created one already and are helping to grow this community of support. So thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you continue enjoying the Wopila Gathering. Up next, we have a quick video from Lakota Law Director Chase Ironeyes and Standing Rock Organizer Phyllis Young. We're going to show some appreciation for our wonderful Lakota Law members. If you want to be a member too, you can. We would be happy to have you. By being a member, you get access to more events like this one. You can sign up with a monthly donation at lakotalaw.org/Wopila. Thank you.
I would like to greet you from Standing Rock. I would like to acknowledge Lakota People's Law Project for the awareness and the dialogue, the communication, the partnership that was created, and the work that you support.
We genuinely appreciate all the years of support, of energy, of time, every little last ounce of friendship that you've lent us over the years. We just want to say thank you. There has never been a better time for us to create the kind of world we would like to pass on to the coming generations.
Your membership empowers all of our efforts.
Lakota members make all this possible. You're a crucial part of very important work that will continue on far into the future. Lila Wopila Tanka Ichichapelo. Thank you. Hey, Lily Joy's on.
Hi, good to see you.
Wow. Hey, so this is Lily Joy Winder. She is an actor. She is a student. She's currently at Stanford, and she is also, I don't know what you call it, like there's many words for people who are expressing themselves online and who've been able to make a big splash. She's also the founder of People Not Mascots, founder. I'm not quite sure what that is, but Lily Joy, maybe if you could take a few minutes of just introducing yourself and letting our network know who you are, that would be great.
Oh, yeah. Lily Joy Yin Xie. Hi, I'm Lily Joy Winder. I'm a Diné and Southern Ute advocate from Albuquerque, New Mexico. My homelands are in the Four Corners area and in Southern Colorado. I am currently a junior at Stanford University. I've been doing online advocacy primarily through TikTok for the past 3 years. And I've been working on People Not Mascots to remove Native mascots without specific tribal consent in schools, public schools K through 12. But I also do a lot of advocacy outside of that, specifically regarding the missing and murdered Indigenous people epidemic, specifically talking about how climate change impacts Indigenous communities and talking about how fossil fuel companies specifically harm Indigenous communities. So I say that I feel like I do lots of different, I think when you are an Indigenous advocate and lots of people don't know a lot about what's going on in Indian country, you kind of have to cover a lot of bases because people want to know what's going on. Or for me, whenever I see a lack of what's going on in what's lacking conversation in the mainstream, I feel it is my privilege and my honor to speak up and talk about those topics. So I do lots of jumping around.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. First of all, it takes a lot to give of yourself, to put yourself out there. It's no small feat that you're able to amass millions of views on your TikTok. That is it's a powerful tool, and it's one of the tools that we've not always had at our disposal. We've constantly adapted as indigenous nations, as indigenous peoples who've been subjected to an ongoing attempted colonial absorption, we might say, and that is when I was your age or a little bit younger than you, I was at the University of North Dakota, and they were called the University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux. And we did not, I mean, we had the Google back then. We're talking 1997, but we didn't have social media. There was we couldn't conceive of a smartphone. There were some archaic Fred Flintstone cell phones in use at that time, but there was no smartphone. We couldn't even conceive of that at that time. And I remember being at a class with, I forget the professor's name, but the professor asked a class, and I'm the only brown person in there. He asked the Fighting Sioux mascot debacle came up in the news stream, and he asked me, probably because I was the only Native student in the room, what I thought about Indian mascots. What is your position on the Fighting Sioux? And I remember not really having a thought to offer. I didn't really know about what was going on there. I went, that was a Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I read everything I could that was out there via Google. The Association of American Indian Psychologists, I ran across some work that they had done, I learned about the words of objectification and usurpation, and really how mascotry, as it, especially in the caricaturization as it pertains to us, to Native people, to young people who are developing a sense of esteem and so forth, what it might do to them. But if you could just talk about, we'll start there. Like, how did you get engaged in that space with that work? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to our country and humanity, really? If you could just share some of that.
Yeah, so when I initially started Native mascot work, I was 17 years old. I was just about to enter my senior year of high school, and my advocacy started offline. I had experienced lots of racism at my school. There was oftentimes I was the only brown person and definitely the only brown girl in the room. I was a very academic student, and at my upper middle class white high school. I mean, when I was taking lots of AP classes, um, I think I was a perceived threat to a lot of them. And so they sought to tear me down in many ways. And that really weighed on me. And so I created Native American Student Union, where Native kids could come together and talk about Native issues, and also a safe space for non-Natives to talk about Native issues. And so I kind of ran into the way I came to people at Masters was kind of just how I came to online advocacy in general. Um, I just started being myself on the internet, and people just talking about what it was like to be Native a little bit, and people had no idea that there was so many people that didn't know that we were still around. There was so many people that were confused about Native issues, that had such little knowledge about Indian country, about Indigenous people in America. And it boggled me because I'm from New Mexico. So, I mean, just about everybody is aware that Native Americans are still alive, at least. But I was like, wow, there's a huge gap, obviously, and I'm getting views, so I should just keep talking about Native issues. And so I continued doing that. And then the racial reckoning of 2020 happened, and I talked about how it is really important that we show solidarity to our Black relatives as well, and talking about how the Indigenous struggle is very similar to the Black struggle, and how we need to show solidarity because as we help our Black relatives, we help our own communities. And this is a really a passionate topic I'm about because my father's Afro-Indigenous. Anyway, so I just kept talking about racial issues, and people kept coming to me who were high school age talking about all the racism and bigotry that they were experiencing because of the Native mascot that they had in their schools, talking about how they felt like they were unsafe going to school, feeling like how they didn't want to go to school. People younger than me, my age, talking about how it was really difficult for them to go to school. And that was something I was able to resonate with while I was in high school. And so I was really drawn to it, and it felt like a feasible thing that I could address at 17 years old. And so I kept talking about it. I created People at Mascots. It was just a spreadsheet of a bunch of high schools when I first started. And then I met up with some other advocates in the social justice sphere, became a website, became a group of people for us working on this issue. And so that's kind of where People at Mascots initially started. For me now, the mascot issue, it's important to me because it fits into a larger context of colonialism, of anti-indigeneity. I mean, and I think for me, one thing that I hope to do more in my advocacy, and something that's always really touched me, is the missing word Indigenous people epidemic, specifically talking about our extremely high rates of sexual violence toward Native women. As a survivor myself, as a woman who has many relatives that are survivors, it is really important for us to be seen as human beings. And I think that baseline of humanity is something that we're not afforded, because the first thing, if it's not something we're afforded to, if the first thing that people are seeing of us is a mascot, is a caricature, is a dehumanizing image that cannot possibly encapsulate all of our humanity, um, cannot possibly capture who we are as human beings. And so That's really why I still feel very passionate about the native mascot issue. I think it also it also ties in with residential schools talking about how cultural reclamation. I mean, native mascots make native children want to distance themselves from their culture, perform worse academically. I believe native children deserve to have the same quality of education as any of their peers. I believe that native children shouldn't have any hindrances to cultural reclamation, especially given the United States history of specifically targeting our cultures. I'm not fluent in the Navajo language because my grandparents were too scared to teach my mother the Navajo language. And so, because they were scared residential schools were going to happen again. And so I think for me, the native mascot issue ties in a lot of these issues for me, and it feels like a tangible issue to work on. So yeah, I guess that was a really long spiel, but
That's okay. That's okay. You know what? We want to, I want to hear from you. I've only got to catch up with you a couple times on maybe a couple Friday calls. I know you made a splash or you were involved in some legislation that was about to be introduced, I think in Massachusetts. That kind of work, that kind of staying power is what we need. Because when I first found out about like the Association of American Indian Psychologists, there's also the Association of American Indian Physicians. And according to their research, Indian mascotry, that process of objectification, that process of dehumanization, of otherizing, of making a mockery, of caricaturizing. If you look at, one of our attorneys earlier stated that Adolf Hitler studied Andrew Jackson. Well, Adolf Hitler also studied the reservation system. Along with the reservation system came these grotesque caricaturizations of the Jewish people. If you take a look at the comic book looking insult-worthy caricaturizations that existed during the Hitler era, and you take a picture also of Chief Wahoo of the Cleveland Indians, who I don't think they've dropped the Indians part of it, but they've dropped the use of Chief Wahoo. You take a look at before the Washington Commanders, they were called the Washington R word, right? Which references a genocidal practice of offering bounties for our scalps, for my scalp, for my children's scalp, for your scalp. Crazy to even think about the level that we have been villainized and demonized. It impacts our children, our young people's developing very, very malleable, impressionable sense of esteem and dignity, self-esteem and dignity. That's what the research proved way back when in 1997 when I first read it, and it probably came before that. So we are born into this place where on all sides we are being accosted psycho-spiritually, intellectually. There's genocide being implemented against indigenous nations. It's for real, and it results in very harmful ways of knowing each other. Not only are we indigenous people like completely attacked and always having to make sense of what kind of colonial programming is happening to us, but it impacts those on the other side of that, those who identify as like white people or who might not view themselves as settlers or colonizers. They're also being taught how to dehumanize us, how to villainize us. And so, and I you know what? I could listen to you for as long as you wanted to talk about that stuff, because it's important. It's important, and I see it impacting our young people. When they see pictures of our dignified leadership and so forth from back in the 1800s, and then they got to see Chief Wahoo of the Cleveland Indians, or people doing the tomahawk chop, or drunk fans at a Kansas City Chiefs game in fake headdresses, somebody dressing up as an Indian for Halloween. Every single Halloween, Thanksgiving comes around, and it digs into the cultural mythology and why representation, indigenous representation, and actually indigenous agency matters. But we have, after you and I talk, we're going to have some people who are involved, who've been in the acting field for a long time. I would like you to talk to our audience and the people who are supporting about your journey into acting. Like, I think that's amazing, and I'm encouraged that you're stepping into these different spaces.
I think I've been acting since I was 7 years old in terms of like just play acting. I'm very small. I'm a very small actor right now, taking small roles here and there. But I am so grateful right now because 2 years ago, I didn't think, 3 years ago, I didn't think that being an actor, investing in acting, investing in film was worth it because we just weren't anywhere in mainstream media, mainstream entertainment. Reservation Dogs hadn't come out 3-4 years ago. Reservation Dogs was smaller 3 years ago. I just didn't know that was a possibility in my 20s. I thought that I was going to maybe see us in mainstream media, us at award ceremonies, us at the Met Gala, like, I don't know, when I had kids. I didn't know that was even going to happen when I was young. And so I'm so grateful that there's even, I mean, I've been auditioning for things since I was sophomore in high school. I've had an agent since I was a sophomore in high school. And so I'm 21 now. That's a long time to not see any auditions come through for specifically Indigenous people, Indigenous women. I would get handed scripts for ethnically ambiguous, and that's what that was the only roles that I was allowed to audition for, that was available to me up until about 2 years ago. I'm finally starting to book things. I'm finally starting to get more involved in the film world. Again, I'm very small. But I am so grateful to even be involved. I didn't even know that this was a possibility for me. If you would have told 10-year-old me that I would have been able to see Indigenous people on film screens, on television screens, I would have been boggled. I have like 4 seconds in Dark Wind Season 2. But to even hear the Navajo language on my television screen was, I remember sitting on the couch with my mom, and she was hearing the Navajo on the screen, and she started tearing up. She had no idea. She didn't know. She didn't envision a world in which we'd be hearing our own language on national television. And so I'm just so grateful to even be starting to get involved, to even have the opportunity to get involved into film. And I feel like a lot of young Native people are excited and are have a lot of hope going into what representation can look like in the next few years.
I could not have imagined it either. Just hearing you describe what has happened very, very recently. It wasn't, I grew up watching Little Big Man. You know what I mean? Like that's like how far, and actually those old spaghetti Western type, where Indigenous peoples didn't really get to explore the depths of a character. Those are some of the only roles that we could get. Like my uncle, my dad's brother, you'll find him in Gilligan's Island. You'll find him in, there's others. His name is Eddie Little Sky. That was his stage name, and he was out in Hollywood with guys like Sonny Skyhawk. You know, you look up Sonny Skyhawk online. He's been in Hollywood. He's been in the acting industry, or it's not just acting. Sometimes it's being as a stunt person. Sometimes it's being a cultural consultant. There's many ways to be involved, and to hear that you're there and you're pursuing that, You're pushing for that. Just stick with it. Stay at it. Something happened after Standing Rock. We didn't see this explosion in indigenous representation and maybe even indigenous agency. Like there's indigenous money behind some of this. Like there's a difference between representation and agency for all of our listening supporters. Representation is when, how Lily Joy was saying, like sometimes you get a role and it's for ethnically ambiguous. What the heck? It's the first time I even heard that term. But representation is when they get a native person and they put them in a role. Maybe it's lead, maybe it's supporting, maybe it's this, that, the other. But we're represented in that field. We don't really get a say of what the role is. That's agency. When it's our money, when if I have the $500 million to do some big money movie project, and I can determine what is going in there, I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not worried about it being canceled or whether it's going to be picked up because it's not palatable to this or that viewing demographic. That's agency. And we're not there yet, but we are going to get there. And Native people in the entire United States are less than 1% of the entire United States. So it's not like we've had, the financial resources or the power to really express our agency, but it always lives with us. But we're going to go from representation to agency one day, and I see it happening. Lily Joy mentioned this explosion of reservation dogs. There's another one coming out called Res Ball or Reservation Ball. I can't remember. It's a LeBron James funded film. We saw Rutherford Falls. I did not know that you were in Dark Winds. Our brother Gene Braverock was also in Dark Winds. I love Dark Winds. Kiowa Gordon from I know mostly all these people from Instagram, which is insane. The native world of artists and activists and entertainers and people who really are a lot of times self-made. Like I'm willing to bet, and I wanted to ask you, Lily Joy, because that's how I came into contact with you, was through your TikTok. The power of your TikTok and your content creation. There's probably other social media presences that you have, but you were able to harness that for things like when the Brackeen case, the Indian Child Welfare Act case, was up before the United States Supreme Court, and indigenous sovereignty was under threat and currently is under threat, is always under threat. But you were able to harness that. Fry Bread Face is the other movie I was trying to think of. But I wanted to ask you about your TikTok. Like, is that all you? Do you have people that are helping you create this content, or are you doing it by yourself? How do you see that being useful for your career and just your art in general?
I think that TikTok was, it was all of my advocacy for a bit there. I think from about a year, maybe less than a year, when I was 17. And that was also because of the pandemic. I was just inside in my room, just talking out loud. I think that my TikTok, I'm a student, and I think that my advocacy now spreads beyond TikTok. I'm so grateful that social media has been able to open a lot of doors for me. I've been able to meet so many incredible young advocates, indigenous advocates, through my social media presence. And so I'm very grateful that TikTok and social media has opened up a lot of those doors. But I don't have a team behind me. It's just me. And if you see the videos that I make now, a lot of it, I try to be really tactful with my TikTok now. Either if I am sitting down to film a video, that I am myself just making because I see what's going in the news, or I see something that's going on in Indian country and I feel the need to talk about it. That's just coming out of my own research and knowledge, and the knowledge that I've built, the research that I've done, and just me speaking passionately about that issue. And so it's not a team. It's not, I don't even script what I write usually. I usually just sit down and talk to my phone. And I think that reads genuinely to my audiences, to my audience, because I talk from a place that is real on social media, because what we're going through in Indian country is real. So yeah, there's no scripter, there's no team. It's just me in my dorm or at home.
Well, I could not, I tell you, the first time I used a teleprompter, I really appreciated it, but I haven't used one in a couple years, and I miss it. But I also have not engaged in a steady production of content. And so that's amazing to hear that that's a solo mission. And social media is useful. It's also a place where we can, like, we do a lot of canceling of each other on there, I've noticed. And so it is very important to engage some work in your life wherever you're at. That goes for even everyone listening, wherever profession or discipline or wherever you might find yourself. It's not, we are fighters. We are fighting oppression, colonial oppression, but there's also joy. There's also laughter. There's also a truth and a healing that comes from our people being willing to express themselves, like Lily Joy, like Notorious Cree, like Landback Batty, like Tanya Jo Hall, like Scotty Clifford, like Raul Trujillo, Gene Brave Rock, everybody who's joined. And I miss some people. Can't even list all the dope talent that's with us tonight. But thank you for doing what you do, Lily Joy. I really, from an older cat who sees you doing it and knows what goes into it, stay with it. In whatever forms and iterations it goes through, take time to rest, take time to breathe. You know what I mean? Like, and I know you've done that because we've been blowing you up, trying to get a hold of you. But I want to give you an opportunity just to share any closing remarks, and then we can wrap it.
All right, closing remarks from me. Thank you, Chase. It's been great to hop on this call. Great to talk to you. I am just I have a lot of hope for the upcoming years, for the generation down the line, despite all of the really tough is not even the right word, the really tragic things that we're seeing going on in the world, ongoing colonialism. We're seeing a lot of death and despair, but I am hopeful, and I continue to do the work that I do because I am rooted firmly in my communities, and because I have a deep well of love to pull from my communities, a deep well of support from my communities that I can continue going on. And so I encourage everybody to lean on your communities, to take care of the people that you love, and that's what I do. I mean, I take care of myself, because taking care of myself is defiance to the colonial systems that would like to see me burn out and wither away. And so, yeah, this won't be the last time that you see me, last time we'll talk, Chase. And I hope that you all are able to continue the great work that you do. Lakota Law, you do such amazing things, amplifying young people, finding young people, making sure that their voices are being heard. I'm so grateful to all the support that you've given me as a college student. It's hard to build out partnerships that are really real and genuine with established organizations. So I'm so grateful for you all. You are for all of you that are watching, this is a very important organization to donate to invest your money in. Indigenous people deserve, especially if you're not Indigenous people deserve your advocacy, deserve your money if you can, and deserve your allyship. And so thank you all. Thank you, Chase. Talk to you later.
Thank you very much. Wow. So, Lily Joy is amazing. I've paid attention to her ever since we noticed her, and we're like, hey, we're not like elders in that generation, you know what I mean? We're like in the young elders generation. I'm 45. Lily Joy is like the same age as my daughter, right? Tokata's 20. Lily Joy is 21, and they're harnessing everything that is in front of them to defend our dignity, and that's laudable, and we want to empower that. If we're not taking cues from our young people who are witnessing, you know, the injustices of corporate extraction, of course, but who are also trying to find ways to heal, to be truthful, and to express the inherent medicine that are within them. I want to empower that. I don't need to be the talking head all the time. I engage the role of orator or pundit or maybe analysis communicator, because it's necessary. When DAPL happened, I was a lawyer, and I knew we had inherent and treaty rights, natural rights, and constitutional rights even. For Americans, we had a right to be there. We had a right to defend ourselves, and we still do to this day. Now, indigenous representation and agency, that is the conversation that I want to get into, I want to dive into, but I want to thank Lily Joy for showing up. I want to let everybody know that we have reached our goal. We set out a goal for $25,000 to raise that because it's going to be matched. We've met that. We've gone to 27,000. That's because you found it in your heart and your capacity to give. Again, we want to give a special shout out to Nomadic's Teepee Makers for that $5,000 hit. That certainly mattered. And a Nomadic's Teepee was the teepee that went up at Pihima at Thacker Pass, but it was donated by the spiritual leaders and the chiefs of the Pine Ridge Reservation. Some of our leadership made sure that that canvas got to where it needed to go in order to peacefully stand in the way of corporate extractive violence. But I want to get to my next segment, and that is a conversation with great friends, great brothers, Raul Trujillo and Gene Braverock. Thank you so much for sticking with us up to this point, brothers. You know, Raul has been, some of you may know him from Apocalypto, or some of you may know him from Blue Beetle. I don't know if Blue Beetle's Marvel or DC, but it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. These brothers have lived through the indigenous explosion of our representation, our ability to storytell. You know, you see the narrative shifting, and I want to give you, you know, and then there's Gene. Like Lily Joy mentioned Dark Winds, brother. Like the Buffalo Society, man. Buffalo Defense Society, or whatever it's called. Like, it's for real. I feel starstruck speaking to you guys right now because I've only seen Gene on TV. I've been blessed to see Raul and chop it up in person. Just very gracious brothers who've been in this world and in that quote unquote business for a long time, who've stayed, who have staying power, and are able to help shape the evolution of indigenous storytelling and really our narrative. So I want to give you guys each an opportunity. We'll start with Raul first. I'm not going to say now because he's older, but you know what I mean? We're going to start with Raul first. And actually, I don't know if he's older.
As an elder. I'll own it. I'll own it. And
but I want to give Raul a chance here.
But I realized the new title for yourself. You're a curator of human beings, you know, indigenous human beings. You bring us all together for a good purpose. And our purpose, I think, for me, has not changed since I started this journey almost 50 years ago. And we're still doing the same thing now. We're opening up the doors. We're knocking down the doors, I should say, and allowing space for young people. It's what I started doing when I was probably in my mid 30s. By then, I felt I had enough to offer to be able to open up the doors and give space to Indigenous young people from all over Turtle Island. And since then, Maoris and other parts of the world would come in, and that was at Banff, at the Banff Center for the Arts. We started an Indigenous school of theater and dance, and it was to allow songs and the dances from tradition and from culture to make their way into this space. And I'm going to say that but before that, before I even started on that journey, I mean, I'm a Genisaro indigenous man from New Mexico. This is where my ancestors are from. I'm descended from the Winichu, the Numenu, and Ndende people here, and the Pueblo people of New Mexico. This is where I was born and raised, and I'm fortunate to be back here again. But this is where it started for me, within ceremony, within the context of how our culture is still alive and thriving here in New Mexico. And it's what propelled me out into the world to look for it. So I was fortunate enough by 21 to venture hitchhiking down through Mexico, Central and South America, and explore other indigenous cultures. And that's really what empowered me to then take this work to the stage and to become a facilitator, to be able to allow all these different voices from, I remember the first time we had Inuk people come from Iqaluit and come and share their incredible drum and dances and their language. And it started slowly, and then slowly became this whole theater movement up in Canada. And I was fortunate enough to work with Graham Greene, Gary Farmer, Tantu Cardinal, and all those amazing people who, again, also knocked down the doors for the people that are now finding themselves moving into those spaces so they can create Res Dogs and Dark Winds. And recently I just saw Fry Bread Face in Me. Oh my God. I mean, what a film. What a film. I mean, beautiful storytelling, so pure, so clear from the heart. I mean, it has you laughing, it has you crying, because it touches all the chords that we all have in common. So, but thank you for bringing me on and being able to just share a little bit about this 45-year journey of basically knocking down doors and meeting with my good friend Gene, who we met on a set, Cold Pursuit in the Canadian Rockies. Had a great time up there, and we still continue to have a great time. He's ridden my horses too. Both of you guys have been on my horses.
Bro, Gene, you're in Cold Pursuit?
He was in Cold Pursuit. Yeah.
Well, so Gene, again, it's an honor to have you here, brother. It really is. I see the work. I've seen your work throughout for a while. For some reason, maybe you could talk a bit about your experience north of that medicine line. Why is it that Indigenous storytelling and Indigenous narrative empowerment, we in the States, we seem to be 10, 20 years behind that or something? But if you could talk about how you got started and, just where you find yourself at today, like what do you want to do today, and what do you find yourself working on today?
So my journey started, as watching movies. Watching Geronimo was a huge inspiration to me. It was actually Steve Rivas from Browning, who was a stuntman on there, which was the aha moment of saying, hey, someday you're going to see me on television riding a horse. And that was the beginning of it. Next thing, we're talking about Canada. Raul just brought up Canada, and there was a show that came out of there called North of 60, which was the first time I was able to watch on screen Indigenous families and Indigenous community portraying their life. And there was a lot of great actors that came out of there. And I actually was recently honored with the Jimmy Herman Award over the past weekend in Edmonton, the Okinawa Awards for the Jimmy Herman Creative Art Award. And, and thinking about that and reflecting about it, Jimmy was a huge inspiration to me. Again, he was one of the first Indigenous faces that I saw on television. I saw him locally around at powwows in the community, and such an honor. And I'm thankful, hopefully I have that opportunity to be able to carry on inspiring, those that are coming up to show that our dreams, we can make them a reality. I was, grew up on the res and went through all the same, stigmas or blessings and lessons that we all grow up with as Indigenous people. And to be successful without losing traditional values, it's possible. Riding horses, having long hair, knowing my language, singing, dancing. It's taken me around the world, and it's taken me to the point of, again, I'd like to share the struggles of being an actor and I'd say a storyteller. Being our oldest tradition, storytelling, I'm thankful that I'm able to carry that on in a contemporary way. But it's brought me to the point of, hearing a million no's and never giving up, and hearing that one yes that gave me the opportunity to speak and share my language and culture with the rest of the world on Wonder Woman, having that power to change the narrative to our own. I mean, that was the question when I was asked was, how do you feel about being called the chief? I had no idea this was for Wonder Woman. And I brought up, stereotypical, we're not all chiefs. And the director realized that or understood that. She said, Gene, I know that it's derogatory. And she was, but based on DC comic book characters, I can't change the name.
Yeah.
She was, but you never have to say that name. So come up in your own language, come up with a name. And I did some research on Native American veterans, and there's so many stories, so many veterans, so many victorious, you can make movies on each and every one of these guys, Francis Pegumegabo, but I realized all these stories were written by non-Indigenous people about our warriors in battle, except one, which was Mike Mountain Horse, who was my tribe, but I did not have the right protocol to use his name. So just, a little secret, I guess, going into audition or anything, when you're asking for guidance, to put down some tobacco and ask and ask our storytellers. So it was, that's where I came to be, that I introduced myself to Wonder Woman as the Blackfoot deity Napi, our storyteller, our trickster, and amazing. To be able to share my language with the world is the most powerful thing that I think I could ever accomplish. And it's put me in made me more passionate about learning and understanding it. And it's brought me to the point of knowing that every word has a purpose and a place, so that you don't misuse, abuse, or take it for granted. Just like everything else in the world, right? That's the problem with, our societies these days, is everything is disposable, and then it's amazing to be able to, thankful that I'm able to, that's my mission now, is honor our elders by visiting them, acknowledging their stories, coming with protocol first and foremost, and retaining some of those stories and language and culture, so that we have, again, to honor them, as well as to leave a path for our youth to know who they are and where they come from. I think we've already, everything that's happened to us as Indigenous people has been to disconnect us, and language is part of that. So I'm thankful.
It's important, Gene, that we acknowledge the fact that, you are spearheading the Oki Language Project. You brought a bunch of us on board that, have become your friends and your family. But I mean, it's, you tell that story about Napi and all that, which is all about language and protocol, and the fact that you're spearheading this Oki Language Project, which is exactly to do the same, to go to different communities, so all those protocols and stories and language and these elders that are still left are giving us the power that we need. Because if we are going to continue forward and make all of our movies, we have to be able to have the weapon behind us to be able to fight this fight. I mean, I think about, the New World, when Terrence Malick wanted to make that film in English. and he wanted all the natives to speak in mid-Atlantic English. And I was like, no, you can't do that. They've already done Dances with Wolves. We've already done Black Robe. We've already done Last of the Mohicans, some. But it's like, you can't now go backwards. The only place you can go is further forward and forward and higher and higher. And that's the importance of language. And so, I mean, I applaud you and I support you. And that's why I'm always support you, because of this particular project. And it's important to acknowledge that, because I've seen you grow so much as an actor, getting into this business from a stunt guy and into an actor. But now your role is even bigger now and more powerful. And I'm just so proud watching you grow. It's like you're kind of like a wayward son in a way.
I love you, Raul. Thank you.
I want to make a comment about the use of language too, because the Oki Language Project, and after the session here, for everybody listening in, we're going to show a brief video that I found on the Oki Language Project's Instagram. And like I said, I know who Gene was for a long time. All these people that you've worked with, Gary Farmer, I've somehow in a fortuitous fashion found myself at Sandia Casino. Gary needed a ride back to Santa Fe. He was just like, it's crazy story, right? Synchronistic stuff. I've had the great opportunity to meet, Tantu Cardinal, just supporters, through Standing Rock. Raul was at Standing Rock, and we just, these brothers are human beings. Like it's easy to think of you as movie stars and to only see the artistry that you engage in, like Wonder Woman. That is huge. Carapax. Raul's playing Carapax in the new Blue Beetle.
Not Marvel. We're in
DC.
the DC.
Okay, bro, I better get that right.
You better.
So I want to ask you about, what are there roles that you can talk about that are upcoming? How do you see this explosion of Indigenous agency? What does it mean to you? This new representation, this shifting narrative. It's things are changing, and you guys have been able to see, how it changed.
Well, yeah, and I have to say, I mean, having been around for 45 years, I mean, it's slow. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. People think it kind of happened overnight in the last few years, because we're finally seeing, Res Dogs and Dark Winds and all these other films and television shows happening. But they've been going on, like you said earlier too. Canada has always been way ahead in the race. And I think I ended up being there probably when I was 24, but it was because the Indigenous movement there in the arts was stronger. I mean, there's better funding there. Canada, apart from its nastiness, just like the US, but in red schools and all this other stuff, but they still fund the arts. And so Canada has always been ahead of the game there. But it has been a long journey. And I think now we're arriving at a place where people like Sterling Harjo, and Zahn, they're proving that we can lead shows, write shows, direct shows. And now is the time that Hollywood is willing to invite us to the table, because we've proven that we do have stories to be told, and we have crews and behind camera, in front of camera, people who are willing to make this happen. So I think we're in a good renaissance place right now. I mean, like I say, it's been a long time in coming. But, Graham Greene and I were talking about that last time I saw him. I ran into him in an airport, because we've been doing, theater since, the 80s.
I just saw you in Clear Cut.
Clear Cut, yeah, exactly. Clear Cut with when I had my hair still.
Hey, that was an amazing
because
show.
It doesn't grow now; it just gets thin. The weight of it.
Jason, you need to rewatch that show. It's brilliant. I watched it about a month ago, and I was like, "Wow, this is back in the day when all the activism stuff wasn't there. It wasn't being,
that's it.
And it's the same story."
That's it. So yeah, we were ahead of the game. I remember that first year. It's like, I think I had 4 films. That was the first year of Toronto International Film Festival, and I had 4 films. I literally just broke into the scene, And I was like, you know, the young Indian kid for hire. And I had the long hair and everything else, and I still had the body. But we've come a long way. But now there's just, I mean, like Martin. I was watching Martin's work the other day, you know, on Frybed Face and Kahara and, you know, Ryan and all these guys, all these people that I know. Just it's so beautiful to watch because we all are part of this community that has been sort of being nurtured and growing for 40 years and some, you know, and to see everybody now falling into place and being in these shows. But like I say, I think we're at a place now where we are invited to the table, and as long as we can come with really great projects with, you know, great synopses and bibles and break it all down for them and show them that, you know, we've been in this business, we know what we're doing, we're going to see more of it. But I think right now we're going to go through a renaissance of people wanting to see more and more native visibility again for the first time. Because I remember when Apocalyptic first came out, and I ran into people who were like, "So what language were you speaking? Was that like made up?" And I was like, "No, that was Yucatec Mayan. It's been spoken for thousands of years, and it's still being spoken." A lot of people just have no idea that languages are still being spoken. You know, so you see Frybed facing me, and you hear this beautiful grandmother telling the stories in her weaving about opening the portal, the doors, and you're just like, oh my God, how beautiful that is. And it's through the language, bringing the language in, bringing the culture in, and people are hungry for it because it is the medicine for our times. And this is reasons why, Chase, you and I, we were talking about, we are the medicine now. The work that we do in activism is the medicine. It's more than the Band-Aid to the wound. It's healing the wound. And that's what the arts have always done and will continue to do. I'm super.
That's why I wanted to connect with you guys, and I also wanted to connect you with Ed Starr, who did the opening invocation, because there is in your artistry, it's kind of like both of you gentlemen have had to kind of like make a sacrifice where you go into these other spaces that were completely dominated by a different narrative, you know, a lens, a foreign lens, and you've had to survive that. You've had to have the internal constitution to come through that. And whether like Gene doing stunts, Raul doing his own stunts, and then you get in front of the camera, and the camera is a tool. It is a weapon. It is a vehicle of artistry, true, authentic human artistry, and then indigenous artistry above there. But I see you guys doing it, and I respect that. And I want to give Gene an opportunity to talk about Oki language. Like, how did you? Because Raul, you're right. The languages are the medicine. What we're speaking now, we're able to communicate with thousands of people online right now because it's like a software running our consciousness. But there is a language. Languages come from sacred places, sacred lands, sacred waters. Gene, how did Oki get started? And could you just tell our audience about what that is?
Oki was started probably, again, I think just probably after Wonder Woman, having that. I mean, I've always been involved in language, even prior to Wonder Woman, trying to, I mean, I've grown up understanding it fully, but to be able to reiterate it back was very tough. And so I've been working at it all this time, and that's what it's just led me to. Everywhere I go, you know, learning different phrases, learning greetings is huge. You know, so actually the Oki language is focused on the greetings of our indigenous languages. It's so Oki refers back to Oki, which is water, that gives life. So when I say Oki, I'm not saying hello, I'm wishing you good life. So there's power in that. And I want to be able to sell, you know, that's a way for me to get into the door, you know, get into the, you know, celebrating our greetings and actual literal meanings of our greetings, instead of, you know, changing the power of our words into English. It's very hard to keep that dynamic and keep that spirit in that word. So again, with all my travels, I'm always, even as a little kid, I feel like I've always been drawn towards elders and stories and language. And, it's amazing to hear, to me, it's not knowledge, it's wisdom, right? And to be blessed with that all the, is amazing. My best friends are all over 80 years old.
Wow.
I get phone calls. Even now, I get phone calls from elders in California, that I met at the gym. It's all the old people that are there at 5 o'clock in the morning. But it's again, I'm very honored to be blessed with being raised with my grandmother and knowing who I am and where I come from. And I see that disconnection with our youth coming up, and I want to inspire as many as I can to learn about who they are and where they come from, what your last names mean, all these different things. And I know that throughout America, we're all connected and disconnected in different ways when it comes to culture and language and values. There's so many. That's what I want to get back to, learning the language so the values come back in. I know, like, even in our greetings and greeting, that's a perfect example of something that, when we're greetings, it's either, I'm Gene Brave Rock and these are all the movies that I did, or I am, I'm a grandson. I was raised by my grandmother, and I'm from the Tall Tree clan. I come from the, east side of the Rocky Mountains. I would introduce myself without saying my name. One's about respecting who I come from and where I come from, and the other one's about ego. So those are kind of what I want to bring back, language program, along with the language, still the creation stories. There's, in America, there's over 500 different, I don't have to tell you guys this, but I know that 99% of America doesn't know whose land they stand on, and that there is 500 different nations, and we all have different languages, cultures, beliefs, ways of life. And, I know we've been pan-indigenized. So, and for me to be able to promote language, and not just my own, but each and everybody's, to show that our youth still have that power. I know there's so much we're dealing with as Indigenous people, and I can also say that, with, they're talking about energy and transfer, DNA, the traumas have been brought down to us, but also the prayers and blessings and values also, right? So my goal is just to be out there and to leave something
brother,
for those who are coming behind us.
we could maybe we curate another gathering, another discussion, because when you're talking, you're talking about, for instance, just last names. What the euphemism of boarding school and residential schools, and the disconnect that it's causing our people, and then now we're being called to police ourselves, to say, look, at this guy's not indigenous. He's not federally recognized. There's a federalization that is happening, but that's a big discussion. But through our language, we want to provide people, indigenous people, even who've been denied recognition from the United States or Canada or any one of these states of the Union. We have to unify through the language. We can do this. So we're going to support that. Like, we don't want to operate from a place of scarcity and see each other as competition. We want to put each other on. And look, at Raul agreed to do this right away. Gene is here on short notice. It's like when a fighter takes a fight with 1 day notice.
He wanted to see me. He hadn't seen me. So
that's right.
Still alive. Even though I got 6 broken ribs.
But so Raul's healing up. I want to give each of you an opportunity to take a couple minutes and just share some parting thoughts. Brothers, let's gather again. I really am honored by sharing some space with you tonight.
Well, I appreciate you bringing me on and bringing my brother on here too. I think, if anything, what I've learned in all these 45 years of making so many movies, I mean, there's like over 100 projects I've done at this point, but the ones that I remembered, because I've counted them out, I've done films and television shows in 18 different native languages. And the pride that I had in learning those languages for these projects was to make my vocal coach proud and to make the people who spoke the language proud. And if I could ask them, do you understand what I'm saying? And if they said yes, I was like, okay, I did my job. And that to me is always been the most important part of portraying these roles of different indigenous people in all these different stories. And going forward, I want to be able to do only projects going forward that are going to bring in yet more new languages that haven't been exposed and immortalized on film or on the small screen. I want to be able to bring those stories, and I want to bring the mother tongue of my grandmother, the Ute language, which I don't know. I know a few words, but I want to learn that language by working on a project that is very dear to my heart and be able to know who her people were and know the language. So moving forward, that's what I'm interested in, is bringing the language and the stories and be able to tell them with honor and respect and dignity, because that's what I've been doing for 45 years. I don't really care about all the other hoopla. It's just about honoring the ancestors that we all come from here, and we are all united now, and we're all in the fight together, and we've got to be able to just support each other and not just keep focused on the big picture. The little picture is, like Gene said, it's all ego. The bigger picture, there's room for everybody. There's room for all of us. But thank you for bringing me in.
Thank you, brother. Gene, any party thoughts?
Thank you for bringing me on to be able to share. My journey has brought me, nothing but gratitude and, a confirmation that dreams do come true. Dreams are bigger and better than the realities around us. And very thankful to be able to work with the people that have inspired me, including Raul, Graham Greene, everybody that I've worked with has been, it's, my life feels surreal sometimes when I reflect, and I'm very blessed, very thankful to be a storyteller, especially this day and age. Like you said, the narratives are changing, and every step you take in North America, there's a story to be told, and it's ours, and it's a great day to be telling those stories. On Dark Winds alone, I know there was, they changed the, I think there was 20 Indigenous writers at the table. That's great. I mean, what a amazing time to be alive and telling stories. So, thank you.
Thank you, brothers. We'll gather again. Again, thank you guys for indulging that discussion about representation, about agency is completely powerful. It's the future, it's the now of indigeneity and the authentic artistic expression of who we are, of what we are, of our talents. And there's no better way for me to kick it off than to gather some of the people who've been able to witness that evolution, join them with young people like Lily Joy Winder, like my daughter, people who are trying to get in too. We all have stories to tell, and because you've had staying power, you're in a good place, and it's not by accident. You're in an appropriate place because of who you are, because of what you've done with your lives, and we want to support that. We want to make sure that grows. So to everybody who's listening, thank you very, very much. And I want to share a video, the Oki language video, and please look these gentlemen up. I mean, they're not going to talk about all the movies that they've done. Blue Beetle, a DC project, Apocalypto, like Dynamite, Wonder Woman, for Gene. Just go look them up, find their social medias, and link with them, support them, and let's continue to strengthen ourselves, brothers.
Peace, man.
Peace.
Okay, nistua anno kenekua nitsitepi, nitaniku natuyipita. My name is Gene Braverock. The world best knows me for my role as Chief in DC Comics Wonder Woman, where I introduced Napi, or the Blackfoot Trickster. For most, the word Oki is the first indigenous language they ever heard, and I'm here to make sure it is not the last. 3/4 of indigenous languages are endangered. Language is a powerful tool that defines the identity and culture of a people. When languages vanish, future generations are deprived a vital part of the tools necessary to truly understand their culture. Context is lost, knowledge is dissipated, along with pieces of history. As the years pass, the more that fades from the identity of our youth will not be able to be reclaimed. A great society with knowledge, values, and traditions will be lost to us all. The roots of who we are in the language that we speak. The Oki Language Project is an initiative inspired by the Blackfoot Language Revival Group to create thriving and proud communities for future generations through active promotion in Indigenous history, culture, and language. Hello is not just a greeting in Indigenous languages, but a unique and diverse worldview of a people. Through this project, we will be creating a video library of Indigenous greetings and share elder stories of the deep, meaningful act of welcoming another human being. This library will be accessible to all in honor of the original people whose lands we occupy and visit. These stories are for all of us. Please consider supporting us for future generations.
Mudakiapi, Leapetuki Washte, Habo Washte, Machiapi, Malakota, Damakota, Na Hewatokta, Oyate Yamani, Na Iamosloha, Emataha. Hey everyone, it's Tanya Jo Hall. I want to say welcome to the Lakota La Wopila Gathering, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the word Wopila and Lakota. It's to give thanks, it's to give gratitude and appreciation, and I just want to encourage each and every one of you to give your words, give your last paycheck, give your man. I was always taught ever since I was a little girl by my unchi, by my grandma, that I'd get mad, hey Tanya, somebody liked your earrings, give them away. And I didn't understand that word, just like giving them away. I understand that generosity is a virtue to Lakota Oyate, but I just didn't understand, like, why do we have to give things away when they like them? And I want to give the teaching that my unchi gave me, and she said, every time we give something physically, we're giving them prayers, we're giving them encouragement, we're giving them goodness, good energy. And I want to encourage you, even if you have tobacco, even if you have an old sandwich in your purse, I want to encourage you to give it to somebody. And with those gifts that you're giving, I also want to encourage you to give some uplifting words. I feel like we're not challenged enough to give our loving words, and I want to encourage you to seek somebody out that has done something really honorable and really kind for you, and let them know what it meant to you during that time, because we never know what people are going through. And this is a beautiful gathering. I'm thankful to be a part of this, and that was just a small little teaching from my unchi to you guys.
Madakiapi. I am Scotty Clifford, and I'm from the Badlands of South Dakota. And I want to welcome you to the Wopila Gathering. And I want to give a big thank you to Lakota People's Law Project for all the work that they do in and around the Black Hills. And I want to share a song today entitled Running. This is a song that I wrote about the Buffalo Nation and an ode to their perseverance. I know we talk about resiliency, which is a reactive thing that we do in and around Indian country. But perseverance is the proaction. So I want to send a big heartfelt just encouragement to all the people that are doing this proactive work in and around Indian country, especially with Lakota People's Law Project. So I hope you like this song. me. You want me to teach you how to be free. All I know is happiness is just a touch away. It'll make you wanna stay. We're always running away from the storm. We don't even realize we've already won. But you leave this all up to me. You want me to teach you how to be free. All I know is happiness is just a touch away. It'll make you wanna stay. We're always running into the unknown. I think it's time we begin to grow. Let's figure out how to be. It's gotta take a you and me. Happiness is just a touch away. It'll make you wanna stay. Happiness is just a touch away. It'll make you wanna stay. We're always running. Wopila Chichapalo. Dokshake, and we'll see you again.
Hello again, beautiful Wopila Gathering community. I am so happy to have you here on Giving Tuesday for our third annual live stream celebration to honor, inspire, and activate. I hope that you've been able to find some inspiration today from our amazing leaders, activists, and artists. If you are resonating with the spirit of this gathering, I encourage you to please make a tax-deductible donation to Lakota People's Law Project. Today, all donations will be doubled, so your gift will go twice as far. So please head over to lakotalaw.org/Wopila. There you can make a one-time gift or become a member with a monthly gift. As a member, you get access to more events like this one throughout the year. Lakota Law simply does not exist without the financial support of people like you who are of like heart and like mind. So please give to the movement for Indigenous justice and sovereignty. Your double donation will go to protect sacred lands and waters, resist harmful extraction, safeguard Native children, and more. There are other creative ways to give too in support of Lakota Law. If you want to make a tax-smart gift of cryptocurrency or stock, if you want to give from your donor advised fund, or even create a free will and leave a bequest to Lakota People's Law Project, you can do that. Head over to lakota.law/ways to give. That's lakota.law/ways to give. And there you can explore more giving options. So whatever way is right for you to give, be it a one-time gift on the Wopila page, which will be doubled, or a more creative way, we deeply appreciate it. We deeply appreciate you. So thank you for being here to celebrate with us, to learn with us. We are in this together. Thank you for your support.
Hey. Keely, Tui, Phyllis, you know what? We're going to go just as a warning to everybody still tuned in. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate you indulging us. We appreciate your support. We're happy to let you know that we've exceeded our goal. But I just found out that every single dollar over 25,000 is going to be matched dollar for dollar. So we thank you for that. Phyllis Young, who I was able to catch up with during the Army Corps' their sham of consultation or whatever that was in Bismarck, North Dakota. And so I don't want to start with the Army Corps though. Let's not start there. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the International Indian Treaty Council. And we find ourselves in a place where the Indian Child Welfare Act, for the moment, is safe, is recognized as the law of the land. But as you know, as you've been able to see throughout your career, indigenous nationhood, tribal sovereignty is constantly under attack and it's never safe. That's why it's important for us to go out and preach the gospels and also try to empower ourselves, not just financially, but spiritually and politically, because we're on a mission. We have tremendous work to do. And we take it, at least I take it, every 4 years. Every 4 years that I get to be here and I get to do this work alongside people like Phyllis Young, who's one of the founders of the Women of All Red Nations and was in the trenches here at Wounded Knee, 1973, and onward, and has continued to do tremendous work. You can see her in Oyate, the documentary out now on all streaming platforms. You can see her in End of the Line, another film project out now on streaming platforms. Please look up Phyllis Young and find, and it's a blessing that you're here with us and that you're able to share. So I wanted to set the stage like that. What do you see? What are you working on? And what do you see for the next 4 years for the organization, Phyllis?
Well, Chante was nape to zapi. Mini Takio Himachapi na Mini Yuha Najui Himachapi. I'm woman who stands by the water, woman who loves the water. Those are my given names by my Oyate and my family. I'm so inspired by the young people who started these videos out. The digital democracy is what the movies and the movie industry is all about. We're at a new threshold for telling our stories and getting them on screen and being front and center. Um, Americans are the new Indians. There's no canary in the mine, no warnings. Mother Earth is fighting back to protect herself, and we have to live with that. So, our daily prayers are for the Oyate, the Wakia Oyate, to be kind to us and gentle to us. And song and dance by our people, we still have the frequency, the rhythm, and the vibration that we all have in our bodies as magnetic fields. We can develop technologies and add that new dimension, that fifth dimension, that sixth sense to everything that we are, who we are in our language. We start that out all the time. And as we go into the genetic psyche of our children, we will perfect more the teachings that come from within. And so it's an exciting day. I'm so blessed that I have witnessed many things. Yes, we we are now seeing the more of the human side of the non-Indian society. When you talk about Indian child welfare, we had to stop the sale of our children, $50,000 a shot. The subsidies that non-Indians received, 20,000 per child, 20,000 for special ed. You now have parents, adopted parents, giving back those children as they age out, as they are two spirits, as they're not acceptable in their societies. Standing Rock, two children that we were looking for, and our foster grandmother is had now received those two children back as they have aged out, and they are being readopted by relatives at Standing Rock. So there's a whole new dynamic to telling both sides of the stories, and we're really excited about documenting that and welcoming those children back into our society, accepting them unconditionally. So it's a good thing. So, as well as writing our and codifying the traditional laws that oversee the adoption of our Indian children. So, we're blessed, and we thank all those who have helped us along the way. So, I'm real excited and positive as we move forward. Um, my my granddaughter, Beatrice, made me smile very big when she came on.
Phyllis,
Get a joke out of her and about the giveaway and the good giveaway. My mother's name was Washtewi Chakui, good giveaway woman, and that's my daughter's name as well. So it's one of the seven sacraments, so to speak, of our way of life, and a very beautiful gesture that we go through life giving, being givers and takers. So beautiful concepts we have to share. Um, I'm inspired by all the younger people. Gives me hope, and that I can leave my big hampa tracks as evidence of where I've been and what I've done, but to have the future um, in hands of young people who understand our way of life, who speak our language, who can interpret our thought processes, and tap that genetic psyche that will be the collective memory of a beautiful life and a way of life who we are. So I'm very inspired by this evening.
there's certain things that I'm glad that you give your time and your energy to, not only to the organization Lakota Law, but you've been here since before I got here with the organization, and you had a part in raising me. I'm very good friends with your children, and it's crazy to sometimes when Phyllis, if she raises her tempo of her voice a little bit, like in my mind automatically thinks about like being disciplined or being called in off the street, to come eat at the house or whatever. And she's taking care of a lot of people. She lives these values of compassion, and she's been involved in a lot of things. So there's certain aspects of the female, of the women's experience. The women have their own province that men are not supposed to, go into. I'm thinking about like Roe versus Wade. I'm thinking of how my daughter has taught me, tremendous, has challenged me in unimaginable ways to change my thinking and to recognize the Christian male dominated programming that we've all received. Now, your work in the Women of All Red Nations and International Indian Treaty Council, the times that you were in Geneva, way before the resurgence and the Renaissance really took hold. We get to live in that world that you had a hand in creating. We're standing on those shoulders, able to grow our hair long, able to have inipi, oinikaga, or wiwangwachi, or humblechea, able to have our sacred ceremonies and languages respected and out in the open. And that didn't come easy. The Indian Child Welfare Act didn't come easy. The American Indian Religious Freedom Act, both of those in 1978, didn't come without sacrifice. But one aspect of your work that is completely powerful that I think we should talk about, like give you the space to talk about what you've done with the National Museum of the American Indian, what you in the Smithsonian, what you've done with Vine Deloria Jr. It's been 18 years now, November 5th, since Vine Deloria Jr. Began his journey to the spirit world. And one of our aspects and pillars of our organization is to defend defend sacred sites, defend the language and indigenous sovereignty. So if you could tell us about what it was like to work with Vine and whoever else, I just like to hear your stories, even like about going to Geneva. Like how was that working when NAGPRA was first created, when the National Museum of the American Indian was first an idea? And can you talk about your time on that board?
Um, yes, I was very privileged to have served 15 years on the Board of Trustees for the National Museum of the American Indian. And it was at Vine's request that I participate, and I was welcomed as a board member. I served one term as the chair of the Board of Trustees. Um, and a lot of it had to do with our life struggles and the testimony and the surviving of different issues. NAGPRA, we were, Standing Rock were the founders, one of the founders of NAGPRA. The axe to grind was years because um, the legislative language that was developed promised that the cemeteries would be moved to safer ground, higher ground, out of the water. It didn't happen. My great grandmother, my mother's mother, um, was a calendar grandmother for the North Dakota Historical Society, and um, their graves were robbed, and they were stripped of all their regalia, and they are in a mass grave in Kennel, South Dakota, one of the river communities on Standing Rock. And my axe to grind with the Army Corps is that in this day and age, I have a great grandmother who is still in a mass grave, whose grave was robbed, who was desecrated. And so, because of that um, life experience, we are NAGPRA. And today we are seeking an amendment to NAGPRA, the Native American Graves and Protection Act, um, to apply to lands where there were boarding schools so that we have access to the graves of the children who are buried in those areas. So we are seeking an amendment to legislation of NAGPRA. And that's a big part of it. And so it was Vine Deloria um, who brought that work into the museum, National Museum of the American Indian. I'm very proud to say is a living museum, is teaches the life ways of modern society in terms of our language and lessons that we live, we still live. It's not a vanished American or a hidden agenda. It is a living museum. We are the evidence of the Western Hemisphere, and we documented that. So, Vine was one of the founders of the National Museum of the American Indian. Um, a lot of purchased um, articles, cultural artifacts, art, sacred funerary objects were all housed in an ancient building in New York City. Long story short, that was moved um, while I was on the board from New York City to Suitland, Maryland, in a new building that was housed them, and then transitioned and cared for and prepared for moving them. The National Museum of the American Indian in D.C. So a lot of the work that we did there, we validated the different artifacts, and we saw the transition of um, objects being transferred to become the private property of families who now have the right to claim those. So, um, having served with Vine, who was a litigant against the Washington Redskins, um, I worked with Russell Means, who was a litigant against the Cleveland Indians in 1970, along with Faye Yellow Eagle from the Rosebud Reservation. Um, those were trailblazers for against caricatures and mascots. So it's a life struggle that Vine was one of the litigants who started that movement. Russell Means was one of the ones who started that movement. So a lifetime of struggle, and now both of those teams have changed their names and their caricatures. So um, that's some of what Vine has done. We acknowledge the Kennewick man, as a Native American Indian, and it took a few years, but Vine was already in spirit world when they validated that he was in fact an Indian. So I looked up and I said, Vine, you did it from over there, but thank you. So um, I'm very, very privileged to have worked the long um, years that I did were a joy. Um, Hard work and dedication, and Vine Deloria was one of the top 7 theologians in the world, and he preached his Christianity and his theology at the red level, meaning our people. So we have many relatives who are beautiful Christians, and we will never, never defy them because um, our own people have proven, perfected the Christian um, way of life. So we thank you, the good Christian people who prevailed in their struggles. So that's the story of Vine, and probably the best that I could do for him, and I miss him dearly.
Yeah, I just wanted you to talk about that because we're finding ourselves right now, even with DAPL, the human remains that are in danger of being exposed to an oil spill is very, very real. And right now, I mean, just to hear you talk about this lawsuit in Cleveland in 1970, I did not know that. I know about the one that Vine Deloria Jr. and others, I believe Suzanne Schoen Harjo, other names. You know, it made me even think of David Gitt, cousin David Gitt, rest in power everlasting. He was at University of North Dakota in 1969. But this work is a continuation. There's been new developments, and I want you to weigh in on the treaty, the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, because the Oglala Sioux tribe and the Standing Rock Sioux tribe have now recently taken action, and I hope to catch up with you December 6th and 7th in Rapid City at the Great Plains Tribal Water Alliance, there's significant things that are possible with our people, even in our current situation on different reservations and so forth. This new opportunity that the Oglala Sioux tribe and the Standing Rock Sioux tribe are pursuing in relation to outside of the treaty land, this docket 74. Can you just talk about your work with the treaty and what that might mean for the future of our organization?
So that again is a life struggle and decades of work. Um, After Wounded Knee 73, the Oglala Nation came to Standing Rock um, in 1974 and asked for Standing Rock to host an International Indian Treaty Council. And long story short, the Chief Food Crow came in full regalia with an entire entourage from Oglala Nation with a petition speaking strictly Lakota, addressing the tribal council uh, to host this as he recognized Standing Rock as a stable government and who had just recently held a panel of eminent scholars from Harvard, Rutgers, Princeton, University of Colorado, a panel who upheld the International Indian Treaty Council. And then you had in the Wounded Knee trials in Iowa, a federal court, district court, who validated the 1868 treaty because of the Wounded Knee trials. So that, along with the petition from the traditional chiefs, um, there was a unanimous vote by the Standing Rock Tribal Council to host that conference, and that was held June 18th through the 24th, I believe, of 1974. So we're coming upon the 50th anniversary of the International Treaty Council, um, which drafted for 37 years the UN, which was my work for 20 years. And so incredible principles and incredible collaboration of natural peoples all over the world. And so trying to incorporate and develop and promote the human rights circle. I mean, the founder of the Human Rights Commission in 1945 was Eleanor Roosevelt, an American woman, an international greatness her name carries for America in that time and era of her life. And it was the Genocide Convention that was introduced at the United Nations, and it took 40 years before the United States adopted the Proxmire legislation in 1988, the Genocide Convention, agreeing that it was illegal to separate a group of your people from their own, to to do things, and the legislative fiat says a fine of $1 million and a term of 20 years. So who has done that to us in this country, in our own homeland? So we have some names and we have some charges, but we'll come upon that. But for 50 years, we've been working on international principles, and so we are now back to the 1868 treaty, which took 70 years to get through the Congress, through the court system, and the longest court case ever in this country. So after 70 years, in 1980, the Supreme Court decided that they would take the 1868 treaty and the Black Hills docket 74A and docket 74B for 40 million and for 7 million, and was never accepted by the Sioux Nation, the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. So it's been 40 years that we have embarked upon this act, ignoring it. So now we have passed a resolution to pursue consultation process with the United States government to negotiate and discuss the fraudulent act of 4 civil rights generals who changed articles in the treaty, 1868 treaty, took it upon themselves after the ratification, after the approval by the Sioux chiefs for the 1868 treaty, who changed it. Those 4 Civil War generals changed an article in there and committed fraud. So that has to be put on the table. So after the Supreme Court decision, there is the Indian Land Claims Commission who took testimonies and research of all of the documents. Sitting Bull, all of the Sioux chiefs, all of the Indian people never wanted to sell their land, never. And that is comes from a decision of the Indian Land Claims Commission, so that we have the evidence. And so we are now negotiating docket 74, putting it before Biden and the Secretary of Interior with the chairman of Oglala Nation and Standing Rock. And both are veterans of the United States military. Chairman Star Comes Out is a U.S. Marine veteran, and the chairwoman at Standing Rock is a staff sergeant for 15 years in the United States Air Force.
Oh, thank you for that, Phyllis. We are running out of time, but I would urge you, maybe we can put together some of the conversations that I've had with Phyllis. Sometimes I get with Phyllis and then I just listen. You know, we put a microphone on her and we put the camera on, and then we just want to hear stories. We want to hear what happened in Cleveland and with Cleveland AIM, with Russell Means and with everyone else that you were involved. We want to hear what happened when it was called the United Nations Draft Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. When you took us to meet with Milo Yellowhair, I was 18 years old at Fort Laramie, where our grandfathers, at the advice of our grandmothers, signed that treaty and created this covenant with the United States. I want to hear about the international, Melvin White Eagle, rest in power everlasting, and what happened at the formation of the International Indian Peoples Treaty Council, International Indian Treaty Council. What was it like when you went to Geneva? Like we want to have that conversation, but we're out of time tonight. But this is Phyllis Young, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to work with her. I'm honored to stand with her, to take guidance from her and from my daughter and all of the indigenous powerhouse women that I'm privileged to be proximate to and to take guidance from. I know I see that. I see how our nation, the Lakota, the Ocheti Shakoni, the Dakota, are just like the buffalo. And it's to our benefit and it's to our better judgment that we carry on in that way. So I just want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I want to thank all of we have a certain category called sustaining membership, where if you donate $5, $10 a month, whatever it is, you just set it up on auto donation. You probably paid 10 times that and for Netflix and Hulu and all of the streaming services. Who knows what Apple is billing us for? I get a bill from Apple. I don't even know what that stuff is, but it's coming out of my account. So sustaining members, donors of any kind, people who give estate giving through free will or whatever platform, we want to thank you. The land back, the defense of the sacred, the taking the advice of indigenous agency and increasing representation and agency, and continuing to defend ourselves from corporate extraction. That is the vision of the Lakota People's Law Project. Since I was recently named the director of the Lakota People's Law Project, I want to continue to operate in that ethos, in that spirit, in taking that guidance and being as powerful and impactful as we can be. I understand we almost hit $30,000 tonight, which exceeded our goal of $25,000. So it's because you were willing to give, because you were willing to share, because you're willing to invest in this movement, which you are a part of. Even if you are an ally, maybe you're a non-Indigenous ally, you have a network. You also have people who are searching within, who are searching for meaning and purpose in the various worldviews, in the various walks of life. We come from that tradition of freedom fighters and free thinkers. And we want to continue to espouse those values as we walk forward into the next 4 years, the next 10 years of Indigenous agency, Indigenous empowerment. There's a shift happening, and I'm very grateful that I'm alive to see it as well. So that's all that we have for tonight. Thank you again, Phyllis, for joining us. Thank you all to all the artists. Like, that was an insane lineup.
Do I have a
Take us out. You can close us out.
Do I have a minute?
Yes.
Do I have a minute? Okay. Women of All Red Nations was founded in 1978. Chief Foods Crow asked the women to step up because only the women society can address women issues, including reproductive rights. We are codifying our women's rights, our land rights, our water rights, and anything that is relative to our way of life. We are making it into our law. We are codifying traditional law.
Ha lila wopila tanka ake kola iuha doksha ake wachiang telo. Until we see each other again, please, everybody, go check out the next gathering, Great Plains Tribal Water Alliance, December 6th and 7th in Rapid. We're hoping to work out a live stream capability for that gathering, but I'm hoping to see you there, Phyllis, and all of the elected tribal leaders who are going to gather in the sacred Black Hills, which are not for sale.
I'll be there. The Black Hills are not for sale.